April 26th of this year, 2013, as being valid, and that is now the new figure that the school district can expect. Taking that addition of 800 to 900 additional students and the reconfiguration, what was very key to the Board of Education was looking at ways to either expand existing sites or work with the one piece of property, Claremont Road, which is the purpose of our meeting tonight, to put in a new construction for a new school. The school being proposed is an elementary school. It's a pre-K through 5. It's based on a design that's going to be very similar to its most recent elementary school, which was the Franklin Park School, that is approximately between 800 and 900 number of students. Again, the same thing, elementary. And so what we've done tonight is brought you what has really been submitted to the Department of Education for its schematic factor, both the site plan as well as its floor plan. I do mention that these are both considered schematics. These are things that are not developed any further, because you do not go any further until the public has actually weighed in terms of financial support for the project. What I'd like to do is just briefly mention some of the design overall goals for this particular piece of property. The reason why the property was chosen with the input from the municipality previously was that it is a large parcel of land. It's certainly adequate, more than adequate in size to accommodate a new school. In fact, it's adequate in size that it can accommodate the school, its ancillary uses, which includes recreation, physical education, but it even has great potential in it for really being an excellent location for environmental education. It has not only buffer areas, it has a variety of kind of trees and meadows areas, and has a potential for it to be a really exciting space for an elementary school. Alina will talk very specifically about some of the technical aspects of it, but just to walk you through what the Department of Education, which really controls the design of school facilities, really looks for when a new facility is designed for a parcel. They're really looking for a way of safety and security first. They want to make sure that the access to the school is easy, and you have a way to separate both busing for the mass transit, as well as cars, as well as allowing for pedestrian access, bicycles for students. The other component is to make sure that it's very friendly, very welcoming. People know where to go upon entering the circulation system. In addition to that, they want to make sure that there's multiple entrances and exits that work for different purposes. So you have the main school entrance. You'll have an entrance that really works off times when they were looking to use the gymnasium or the cafeteria. And the third factor is really the service and support for the system, and you really have some separation between those three primary service components. The other things obviously are very critical for your assessment is making sure that there's stormwater management and all the resources that are happening on the site are sorted out in its correct location. The other factor we want to throw in there is this idea that we know Franklin Township as a municipality has certainly embraced the LEED criteria as well as the criteria of sustainable New Jersey. We wanted to make sure that the school maintains that component of the education and really celebrate the site as something that we conserve natural resources, we minimize the energy consumption, we maximize the amount of natural daylighting, we go for a very insulated thermal envelope. We really kind of celebrate what we can do in terms of making that almost a 3D textbook in the design of the education. And you can see right now we really have it zoned in different areas that we can have the building function. One wing would be for the youngest students. The larger wing would be for the communal areas that we share with the community. We have areas that are both on the lower floor as well as the top floor. We're very firm believers that we want to have a consolidated two-story footprint as opposed to minimizing and spreading out and using the land, but allowing that to really expand upward. Approximately, we have about 27 classrooms on the ground floor and 22 on the top. It's about 47 classrooms altogether. The large areas are on the bottom floor in terms of the cafeteria and the multi-purpose area. And we're really having what you can see is almost fingers of additions. The idea is to allow a lot of natural daylighting, really flood the classrooms on both sides, as well as break down the scale of a very large building overall. There are a couple of things I just want to point out to you that we do have a very nice stream on one side. We have a 300-foot buffer, and Alina will talk a little bit about that. We really want to make sure that that is really seen as our natural side. And flanking that, we also have another area of the site that we're not looking to develop at any time in the short future, but again, that has natural woodlands that we're really looking to do walkways and paths and things like that in the far off future. We are showing this as a master plan development. What would really be developed is pretty much the things that are shown dark thing. That's really what would be financed at this moment of time. Everything else dotted in is being shown to you as something that's conceptual and long-range in nature that can be developed on the site. So we wanted to show it has the capacity to continue to evolve and expand and improve. And at that point, I think I'm done with my presentation, unless you have specific questions on the design goals or overall. If not, I could have Alina speak more specifically about some of the technical
Before we
aspects.
take questions, I'd like to make a note. Mr. Bitterbit arrived at 7:39. Okay.
And if I can ask Gene one question before the board
Go ahead.
starts. Gene, did the school go before the planning board for Section 31 review under the municipal?
Yes, they did. In fact, they went to the planning board for not only this project, but there are two other components that involve new construction. We have a 4-classroom special education classroom addition at Hillcrest, as well as a 16-classroom addition as Elizabeth Avenue, and a small elevator addition at Pine Grove Manor. So those components were also conveyed to the planning board in addition to this new school proposal.
And did the planning board have any objection to the use of this site for this school?
No, they did not. They fully
That's from a
supported it.
master plan perspective.
Any other questions?
From us?
Yes.
I have a couple. You kept, in the beginning, when you were telling the history of this project, you kept using the word "we." Were you part of the ad hoc committee?
Yes, I was. Our firm was hired to be the long-range facility planner for the project, and part of what we were hired to do was to work with the community. The idea was to make this a community-driven, because we explored a lot of different options. We explored literally adding an addition on every single school, just to see what is pluses and minuses. We looked at a whole series of different grade configurations. So we worked with both the educator side of it as well as the citizen side and received feedback on the operations. One of the nice things that we found in working with this community was that you basically had a real diversity of community members that came out for those series of meetings, from senior citizens, former board members, people that were educators, as well as teachers and staff that gave up, additional time to come and join us. And so it was a very rewarding experience, and I think that's why the nature of what's being proposed for the public is going to be a little bit complicated, because it's a very comprehensive approach to education improvement. It's not just we're just plopping a new school and that's all we're doing. It's this very thoughtful approach that really came out of a grassroots approach.
Okay, next question. There's a school, the Franklin Park School is not far from this school.
Correct.
Why have two schools been located, two K through 5 schools or pre-K through 5 schools been located so close to one another?
Well, it's actually, to some degree, it is the property that the district and the municipality have outlined for it. So it is the one that's available to them.
So it's
but
property that the district owns or the
It's-
township owns?
No, that the district owns.
Okay.
But the district owns it in conjunction. They basically got some municipal support. When they were looking for properties, they involved the municipality in researching and finding this particular property and getting approval. But I should also say it's also fortuitous, because Franklin Park School currently exceeds the capacity of all the people that live around it. Currently, the district actually has to bus students to a much farther away school, several miles away, because it's not large enough. So you actually have a population bulge in that area of the municipality that cannot be served by the one school. So it's actually good that this is where it's located.
Okay, so in other words, this school, for the most part, would serve students from this area.
Yes, with one caveat. The critical overriding factor for all of the education in Franklin Township is maintaining its cultural diversity. In other words, basically, because the school district does bus students, they want to make sure that the demographics of each particular school does not become different, that it really maintains that you have the average numbers in terms of different socioeconomics, other factors involved with it. So maintaining that diversity is still a factor in the consideration of bus routes and who will be assigned to students. So with that caveat, for the most part, minimizing transportation routes is one of the key criteria, but maintaining diversity is also another key criteria.
Okay, now, I looked through the materials that I got, and I didn't see one that placed this property on the street itself. So maybe you can help me to understand basically where it is. Is it near the entrance to Society Hill?
Alina, actually...
No, here we go.
Yes.
The man jumps up, he comes up with what we're looking for. That's it.
So before we do this, if we could, I'd like to mark the first exhibit that Gene was speaking to as Exhibit A1, and it's identified as CS 1001 by Pannoni Associates, New Claremont Road, Pre-K Elementary School, schematic site plan. And then as A2, we'll show the aerial titled Proposed Elementary School at Claremont Road on a board. So, Gene, if you can speak to that.
Right, do you want myself, or do you want Alina? I know Alina was prepared to speak.
Oh, she's going to speak about that?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll delay the questions for her then. You've been on the hot seat for long enough.
I had one more. I heard you mentioned, it's through fifth grade, yeah?
Yes,
And I heard you mention bicycles.
yes.
I think I saw that everybody's coming on buses.
That's correct. The
And then
district, that's correct.
What's the bicycles?
One of the initiative, there's a federal initiative called Safe Routes to Schools, so that the federal government encourages that as you're planning new schools, you factor in the eventual involvement and try to do the design and the thing to support that you're going to have safe routes that allow for pedestrian and bike. They're trying to promote that as a way for a healthy living and as other additions or residential construction comes into it.
Are
Initially.
you making an application
Yeah,
for that?
Yeah, yes.
Along with the,
It's an application that actually will require the municipality. In other words, it's federal money, so it gets done in conjunction with municipality. The money goes in and out. It's not always present, so you make applications and you wait for it to be funded, but it is something that we want to make sure that in our master planning, we anticipate that as being part of the project.
well, I understand that money for safe routes is now,
Safe routes is,
it goes to the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. And I guess if you want to get it, you got to make an application to them.
that's right, but it has to be a joint application. It's not just a school district that can do it. It actually has to be done with municipal backing. Because they're looking for the alignment. They're looking for intersections.
It's a county road, yeah?
Yes, we have a county road, but in terms
county
of
get involved?
intersections, but I would say if we have any structure that's a county structure, I know Alina's going to be mentioning a bridge, that would have, the county would be involved if we're
Have the
touching on their
county- Has the
bridge.
county looked at the site?
Yes,
And have they written a report on,
I'm going to let Alina,
okay, we'll hear
I
about that. Okay.
I can answer that. There's no formal application with the county at this point. They've been provided a copy of the application itself, but there's not a formal county planning board application at this point, because at this point, we're only on the schematic part of it. But an application will have to be made to both the county and the Delaware Raritan Canal Commission
that's right.
as well.
Okay, and is the county a member of the North Jersey Planning Authority?
I do not know that.
But question, while you have a need for school there, is there a need for school in the Schoolhouse Road area? Where you have
Yes.
that huge development being built?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm glad, that is the other major piece of new construction for the referendum is in addition to Elizabeth Avenue School, 16 classroom is being proposed there, and that's specifically really targeted to capture the population that's expanding in that area. Thank you for asking.
You had mentioned the school itself is a two-story.
Yes.
All right, and that's for the educational purposes. Is there going to be a basement in this building for storage or anything like that?
At this point, we've actually factored in the storage in the upper floor area because we have an opportunity, just refer to this briefly. This lower level, this is the lower level being proposed, and you can see the classroom fingers. The tan color is just a circulation. And these large spaces really relate to the gymnasium, the cafeteria, and the service area. We have an ability to really kind of capture some space right above this area, which is really a one-story, over this central area. So that's where rather than building the basement, we've actually factored it in on the upper floor as a way to make it very efficient and, on top and
And
bottom.
Gene, just for the record, can you identify the document that you were
What
speaking?
I'm referring to, this is a schematic plan that's been submitted to the State Department of Education for their review and consideration. And what it works with what's called something an educational specification, which is a very voluminous written document that actually describes in great detail, working with the educators, the specific educational activities that would happen in every single space, as well as the type of educational activities, the type of methodology of teaching, the type of materials, the type of equipment. So that educational specification is really what they do the judgment on. They allow us just to give them a very basic diagram as to where the proportions would be until it actually becomes a real project. But they judge the project based on the educational delivery of what's going to happen inside the spaces.
And we'll mark that one A3.
Any other questions? Okay, I might ask at this point, how many witnesses do you have? Okay, then I think we'll hold opening to the public until all the testimony is completed tonight.
That'll probably be best because they may have questions for both, based on both testimony, and
Okay.
some may
Great.
answer some of their questions.
Good.
So Alina is going to testify about the site plan A1 that Jean was referring to. There was a traffic report that was submitted, and she'll provide a summary of the traffic report, and she will also provide the planning testimony. So can you first answer the question that was raised when Jean was speaking related to the aerial, which is marked as A2?
Absolutely. Just to answer the question right away, the Society Hill Boulevard is located to the east of the site, right?
And where's Route 27?
Route 27 is down.
Okay, all right, good.
Okay,
I
so.
have one more question.
Go ahead.
Jean was just speaking about this piece of property as if it had streams and trees. And right here in this picture, it looks like it's subject to a nuclear winter. It looks like the whole thing has been basically denuded. Can you explain that?
Well, this is aerial from 2012. The areas that you're referring to are open field areas.
Oh, okay.
So they're actually green areas, even though they show up as
Okay.
somewhat brown.
All right.
Being farmed.
Oh, okay.
It was, yeah. No. Still is? Still corn?
Can you point out South Middlebush?
Absolutely. South Middlebush, right here, to the west of the property.
Yeah, get that.
All right. So, as Jean pointed out, our site is located on Claremont Road, and it's located east of South Middlebush, and the frontage of the school will basically be from Marion Avenue to Matawan Drive, which are the streets directly across from the site. The Claremont Road is a county road, South Middlebush Road is a county road, Route 27 is off the page, that's a state highway. The site is located on Block 34.12, lots 4, 5, and 6, and it's on tax map sheet number of 25. The site is zoned as a agricultural zone. The lot size is 43.8 acres. The existing use is, I guess, it was farmed, and there are open fields and partially wooded site. The Board of Education, as Jean mentioned, purchased the property in 2006 with the intent to construct a new school on the property. The property does, I'm going to go to the next exhibit. Guess I'll refer to both. The property contains wetlands, which are located on the easterly portion of the site. The wetlands have been, an LOI has been issued, a letter of interest has been issued from New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection on January 9th, 2013, verifying the wetlands and indicating the wetlands have 50-foot buffer associated with them. I should mention that the stream that's located on site and to the east, exactly where the wetlands are, is a 9-mile run tributary, unnamed tributary, so there is a stream on site. The buffer, per the flood hazard rules, there is a buffer, 300-foot buffer associated with the stream.
So Alina, within the buffer, nothing can be constructed, correct?
Correct. Limited to no disturbance is allowed in 300-foot buffer. I just want to point out that all of the development is located outside of the 300-foot buffer, and the 300-foot buffer is intended to be preserved. The Again, as Jean already said, the proposal is to build a new school, a pre-K through 5th elementary school, a 2-story building. The use variance is required, thus we are in front of you guys. Next, I would like to go to the, can I enter another exhibit? Sure. Okay.
A4?
A4. This plan has been submitted to the board. This is the CS 1002, dated 4/26/2013, and it is a turning template plan, and it's prepared by Pannoni Associates. The proposed school will have an ingress only and egress only drives. The ingress only will be right across Marion Avenue, and egress will be right across Madeline Drive.
When you say right across, these intersections are coming off of Claremont, they're not coming off of those other streets?
Right.
Okay.
Are you saying
What
that
do you
they align themselves with?
They align, thank you. They're right across from, so
Okay.
they're on Claremont, but they will make a T intersection with a Marion Avenue and a Madeline Drive. So the circulation template is basically showing you the access to the site, and we are proposing a one-way circulation coming into the site on the westerly side and circulating in front of the school and exiting on the east side. The buses will have drop-off areas along the front of the school. There will be a student drop-off area along the ingress drive, and there will be ample parking available in the front in case the drop-off takes longer than anticipated. There's also another circulation pattern for emergency vehicles, which will be coming in the same drive, going around the PE field, going behind the school on this 8-foot wide asphalt access, which is for emergency vehicles only, and coming out of the exit drive. There are 263 parking stalls currently proposed on site, which is 33 stalls over what's required by your ordinance for educational institutions. There's adequate handicap parking available and visitor parking available on site.
Why do you have more than is required?
Well, would like to have more in case there's events, sporting events perhaps at the PE field that's proposed. Perhaps those spaces would be used during those higher peak periods.
Okay.
Since the site is in conceptual phase, the landscaping is obviously conceptual at this point. However, we do point out that adequate landscaping will be proposed once the plan goes in front of the Department of Education, and any of the landscaping that is removed, the hedgerow, it would be infilled where it's needed. Lighting will be proposed for the site and will conform to your ordinance. The drainage, the project is considered to be major development, and per the NJDP stormwater regulations, it has to comply with those regulations. The project must meet the quality, quantity, and recharge requirements. The quantity requirements will be met with an extended detention basin located on the east side of the site. The quality will be met with the bioretention swale running along the Claremont Road, and the recharge will be met with the bioretention swale. I should point out that DNR canal requirements will also be met regarding the stormwater. The utilities, the proposed utilities for the site are going to be connecting to the Claremont Road utilities where water and sewer are available on Claremont Road. And we do have serviceability letters from Department of Public Works and Franklin Sewerage Authority.
Can we just, I see you're going through a lot of things here, and we sort of talked about lighting for a moment. You said it's going to meet the town requirements. I'm not quite sure what they are. Maybe Mr. Healy can enlighten us as to that. But why do we have lighting anyway if the school's only open in the daytime?
Well, there might be obviously the sporting events might happen off-peak hours, perhaps at 6 o'clock, so, or the end of it might be at 6 o'clock. So you do want to provide adequate security and lighting within the site.
How late will the lights be on?
Well,
I can speak a little bit. One of the things that we do for school construction is consider schools as center of community. They're meant to be resources that can be used by more than just the school district. And this building, just like the other schools in the current district, they are used in the evening. They're open for organizations and clubs. They're used for meetings that are shared with municipalities. We anticipate the same level of function that will happen at this particular school as happens at the other 10 educational facilities. And in this case, you really do need to have nighttime lighting. The key thing that we want to emphasize is that we are talking about down spillage. We're not talking about trying to do light pollution and really having a lot of exposed lighting that would interfere with neighbors or actually help pollute the environment in terms of the light spillage. We're actually looking for down safety type of lighting that really is very energy efficient and very controlled and very directed. But even when you get into winter months, people getting out of school at 5 p.m., teachers that are there working, do need lights to make sure they have a safe route to their car.
Okay, now, let's back up and ask some more specific questions.
Okay.
Will the athletic field be lit?
No,
Okay. And the parking lot, that will be the only thing that will be lit?
correct.
When will the lights be turned off in the parking lot? Turn around and look at all the people sitting behind you when you answer this question.
Well, I do not know the current lighting schedule for the other schools, but I would say it's comparable to what the other schools operate at.
All right, then I'll just add something in the resolution that will meet my needs. Okay, thank you.
Now I'm going to move to the traffic testimony. The Pannoni has submitted a preliminary traffic evaluation report dated May 2013, and the study was limited to morning peak and midday peak hours, which morning peak was 8:30 to 9:30 and midday peak was 2:45 to 3:45 p.m. Those would coincide with the entering and exiting movements for the site. The intersections that were included in the study were Claremont Road and South Middlebush Road, the Claremont Road and Marion Avenue, Claremont Road and Matawan Avenue Drive, Claremont Road and Baylor Street. Since the school is a proposed use, some assumptions have been made. The project occupancy data was provided by the Board of Education, and the most conservative occupancy numbers have been used for trip generation analysis.
Most conservative numbers, what does that mean?
The long-range numbers. They have occupancy numbers that are anticipated for the school, that's 800 to 900, she mentioned, but the long-range plan anticipates 1,100 students. So when we did our traffic analysis, we considered as if it's fully built right off the bat.
What are the school hours for this particular building?
Currently, the elementary schools operate approximately 8 a.m. to approximately 3 p.m. That's the primary hours for most of the elementary schools, so that will be similar to this. They have staggered starts for the different elementary because they actually have bus routes that work based on, staggered starts so that they can efficiently use their bus vehicles.
The bell schedule that was assumed in the traffic report based on the other schools was the early bell was 8:50 and the late bell was 9:05, and I'm not, 3:20, I'm sorry. That one, I don't have it written down. 3:20 was the dismissal. So, The mode of transport for the school has been assumed that all of the students will be either bused to the school or to the, brought by car. The 0% were assumed walking, since there's no sidewalks on Claremont Road currently. The existing traffic volumes were obtained from the Somerset County Engineering Department for the Claremont Road and the South Middlebush Avenue intersection and the Claremont Road and Baylor Street intersection. The Marion Avenue and Matawan Avenue was based on the similar neighborhoods in the area. Three conditions were studied. The existing condition, 2017 no-build condition, and 2017 build scenarios. The increase in traffic during peak hours was apparent. Therefore, the level of service at the signalized intersection went from C to E and will remain at B for PM peak hour.
Excuse me, could you say that again?
Sure. For the signalized intersection, the level of service went from C to E and B for PM peak hour.
And that's
Okay.
Claremont and Middlebush, correct?
Yes, Claremont and Middlebush, which is here, the east of the site.
So what you're saying, excuse me, is that in the afternoon, there's no change, but in the morning, I think it sounds like a fairly significant
Absolutely.
change
And
for
I'll get
worse.
to that. Yes. One of the reasons why the morning is, such deterioration is shown is because the morning peak hours coincides with the morning peak hour traffic for the general population. The afternoon peak hour traffic is actually, for the general population, is much later in the day. So the 2:45 to 3:45 is not felt so significantly as the morning peak hour.
But this school is going to have a significant impact on the traffic, the traffic at that
At the light.
intersection.
The intersection, we're not arguing with that fact. The intersection of Claremont Road and South Middlebush Avenue will be affected by the school. However, we do propose that, we do propose retiming of the signal to alleviate that situation. And our proposal is to, when the school, because there is ample assumptions, this is conceptual in nature, we do not know, number one, where the students are coming from. We do not know what the exact mode of transport. We have assumed everything that's possible regarding the number of teachers that are going to be in the school and so on and so forth, that we would like, once the school opened, redo the traffic counts and actually propose improvements to the intersection, which we're, at this moment, we do think it's gonna need. So,
Can you go back and tell us, now you said it's going to go from a B to an E?
C to an E.
C to an E, can you tell us what a C means and what an E means?
Sure. Just one second. Are you sure? Yeah. But then I'm going to be pointing from far away. For this signalized intersection, the level of service C, it ranges from 20-second delay to 35-second delay, which is experienced by a vehicle. And level of service E is 55-second delay to 80-second delay, which is experienced by a vehicle. So what I'm saying is you're going to go from, did I say C? Yeah, you're going to go from about 35-second delay to 80-second delay. Now, keep in mind, this is 95th percentile delay. That means 95% of the population will experience lesser delay. Only 5% of population will experience greater delay than what is proposed in the traffic study.
Now, is that greater delay going to be from the dam over to Claremont, or is that going to be traveling up and down South Middlebush?
It's Claremont
Sedan.
Road in Sudan,
All
yes.
right. Right now, you said that delay is how long?
Right now, the delay is about 35, if not,
Right. Do you have an idea of how
Thank
many
you.
cars can go through that intersection with that 35-minute time zone, or 35-second?
30, I don't have that data. I can tell you how many cars, okay. With the existing 2013,
The report does say,
64?
Alina, does it not,
64?
that the cars will make it through one traffic light cycle?
correct.
You still don't know how many cars?
I
cars,
don't have
five
the,
cars?
I'm trying to find out how long the green light is at the intersection, and then I can tell you.
Are you asking what the current,
Right, what the
oh,
current is to give
It's
us.
the 15
As the.
Sorry. The maximum green timer is 15 seconds currently for the through movement,
That's eastbound, right?
eastbound traffic. So about 3 cars. Yes, the northbound traffic is 54 seconds. So that's the unsouth. Okay, so as I mentioned,
Excuse me, can I ask you a question?
sure.
You said that you don't know where all the cars are coming from, but earlier, I think you testified that the school is going to be serving the overflow of the current school. So, I mean, isn't it logical to think that the cars are going to be coming from pretty much around that area? Okay, I just wanted to establish that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, the timing optimization of Claremont Road and South Middlebush Road light will be required. And a further traffic study would be required upon the school opening. Now I would like to just say that there are other future approvals that may be required for the application. As the attorney has mentioned, the Department of Education approval, the Somerset County approval, the Somerset Union Soil Conservation District approval, the DNR Canal, and NGDP approvals if required, the sewer and water approvals from local and state agencies for the project.
And Alina, from a planning perspective, have you evaluated the application to determine whether we can meet the positive and negative criteria necessary for the board to grant a D variance?
Yes, I have.
Can you summarize that, please?
Sure. I reviewed the master plan for the township, and per the master plan, the land use element has the school use in the land use plan element map. So the map already shows a school use on the map. However, it's zoned in A zone. The community facilities plan is also mentions that Board of Education purchased this specific property for location of a future school. The utilities plan element shows that this property is included in the sewer service area expansion, and the water system is available on Claremont Road for property. The circulation plan element states that the intersection, it does not list the intersection of Claremont Road and South Middlebush Road as the TAP accident location. The There's no subsequent master plan amendments which mention the property. I've reviewed also the zoning requirements for the property. For the A agricultural zone, the permitted uses are farming, single-family homes, and golf courses. Obviously, our use is not the permitted use. However, we do comply with the bulk zoning requirements in the A zone. The positive criteria is met because the school use is an inherently beneficial use. Since the school use is inherently beneficial use, the normal standard for review of use variance changes to the following. The board is required to recognize the criteria has been met for positive criteria, identify the negative impacts, determine whether negative impacts can be mitigated, and perform a weighing analysis to determine whether the positive impacts outweigh the negative impacts. The negative criteria is the following. The increase in traffic. Yes, we do identify that the school will need a retiming of the traffic signal. The second criteria is the loss of farmland. We understand that this will not be a farm any longer. The stream on east side is also may be viewed as a negative criteria. The impact is mitigated as follows. The traffic impact can be mitigated, as I mentioned, upon school opening, we can do another traffic study and determine what improvements the intersection will need. Most likely, retiming of the signal will be required. The loss of farmland is mitigated by the master plan, does not specify this use as the farm, and it's also does not mention in preservation of the farmland. The stream on this side is not going to be affected since 300-foot buffer. We're not proposing to disturb that. So the weighing analysis are as follows. The proposed use is inherently beneficial. The adequate schools or facilities are a major component of our overall health and welfare of the municipality. It provides quality of life and benefits to the community. The negative impacts can be mitigated by installing turn lanes, possible adjustment in the signal, providing buffer to the existing stream. The application is consistent with several master plan goals and objectives. It is specified as a school use in the land use plan element, and community facility range plan specifies the site as the future school. The utilities plan element is also included in the sewer service area. The site is identified on the Somerset County wastewater management plan as part of future sewer service area as well. In April 2013, the Board of Education took the construction plans and submitted it in front of the planning board, and the planning board had no objections. The project will meet all other bulk zoning requirements in the zone, and the project will meet the parking requirements for educational institution. Therefore, applying the analysis, the positive impacts for the proposed use significantly outweigh the detriment of the proposed use. Therefore, we believe the variance should be granted.
That concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any more questions the board might have.
You have
Okay, board questions?
on the planning and the engineering report, there were some comments. Typically, if you're just going to comply with them, you can just, if you're not, then you can mention them.
There were a couple of issues that were identified in the reports. One was the left-hand turn lane on Claremont into the school, and that's proposed for the site. On the planner's review comment number 3, it talks about the possibility of sidewalks along Claremont Road. Because this is a county road, we can't agree to that as a condition. There is a bridge there. We'll have to look at the bridge, but as Gene had testified, there may be federal money available.
Well, I would say you can surely agree to that as a condition, subject to the county approval.
Well, the other issue is the funding for it would have to depend on the municipality coordinating with the school district and applying for the funds that Gene had mentioned. We
Well,
don't,
I mean, I can't speak for council, but I've never seen council not be willing to work with the Board of Ed for public safety. So, I mean, I think you can agree with the condition that those things have to happen.
we would agree with the condition that we can make application for that federal funding that Gene talked about.
Okay.
And,
oh,
I'm sorry, there
go
was
ahead.
one last condition, which was, or one last question, which was the screening in the rear, and I think Gene wanted to talk about, there was a hedgerow, and also screening in the rear, and obviously the screening in the rear will keep the hedgerow, if you can pass that.
We wanted to actually use the hedgerow in the rear as a defining design element. The idea is that we're going to have local play areas. That's really the play areas that's directly outside the classrooms. So we're looking to actually have the canopy of trees and actually have natural shading over those play areas. So we'd look to reinforce that. We're also looking to do areas of the site that would do some succession growing, and others areas that would let to go back to nature over time. Right now, it's cultivated, it's stripped, it's being farmed, so we're going to have areas that can really become wildlife meadows and other areas to increase the local habitat and be part of the environmental education.
Just a couple of questions. Was there any discussion for, if you look on the map here, the residents who live around where the boundary is, and obviously there's going to be trees that will be there, as you said, and it might have been in there, I may have missed it, but was there discussion of a fence being proposed for residents in this area? I think one thing I could see that could be of concern would be if there are any cars coming early in the morning, it's still dark out, residents are going to be seeing where the parking lot is here, and then you have the light flashing where these folks live here.
Yes, currently the elementary schools in the district do have fences around them, and that would be the same criteria applied. Exactly the location of that is to be determined. It would make sense to make sure that we have that in the next level, but we would be consistent with the other schools.
Okay, thanks. And other question was with the start time. I know the early bell, the first bell is 8:50 that was proposed, and then late bell is 9:05. Was there any discussion amongst the board of perhaps staggering the schedule in the proposal to offset that obviously that there's considerable traffic that would be going through there at that?
Those bells are based on how the district is currently operating, because the buses actually have multiple routes. I mentioned they're being used both for older students that have the earlier bells, and then they go pick up the elementary school students, so that has to work out in terms of sheer number, because the district obviously cannot have just a bus for every single grade level, not have the overlap with it, because it's just too cost prohibitive. But obviously, the timings can be adjusted, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Other board questions?
Just a question on the left turn into the site. Say a little bit more about that. I mean, are there shoulders out there now? And how many feet from center line are we talking?
I would have to measure it.
I don't know. We probably have it in here, but.
I've driven the site tonight, actually, so I do know there is a shoulder on one side of the road. The side of the road closest to the property line, there is really no shoulder there. So the shoulder exists on the westbound side. The left turn lane would only accommodate about 4 vehicles, perhaps. And actually, in our study, we did assume there was a left turn lane into the site, and the queue in the left turn lane was about 2 to 4 vehicles.
That would be automobiles, and then you have buses as well, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, and then off-site, at the intersection at Middlebush, is there a right turn lane there now?
On the
Is there any way to get the right turn people
Just so we're all clear.
Right on red?
Coming from which direction?
yeah, coming
If you were coming from
Out of this-
27
oh, from
and going up that way, can you make a right on red there? And is there a lane that people can stack up?
well, Route
Get out.
27 is about a mile away
Right.
from the site, so
right-hand turn lane into the school, right?
No, I think,
Well, I'm thinking the other way, but I'm not sure what are the main access roads?
Correct, I think I know what you mean
Okay,
by the
Hey,
firehouse.
Excuse me,
Keep the hearing
yeah,
up here right
let's
now. It'll
not,
be open to the public shortly.
I don't want to say something that I know they all know and drive every day, so.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that when they get to talk. But I'm just, it does look like you're going to have a big, well, what are we talking? Entering and exiting every, in the morning and evening is 560 cars. So that's a lot of cars in a peak hour, and 45-minute peak hour.
Well, it's split. It's 300,
It's split,
it's about
yes,
300
324,
entering.
326.
Right.
And
The-
even in the afternoon and the morning, right?
And it's distributed over an hour. The,
Is it an hour?
it's distributed over the peak hour.
Okay.
We are currently not proposing a right turn lane into the school, but I would defer to the school.
Absolutely. The school wants to make it as safe as possible.
Got to use the microphone.
The-
Oh, sorry.
If you got a backup, you got plenty of
Agree.
room, along.
I agree. I
Yeah, we can go
understand
right
that
in.
It's it's not my decision.
The school has the land to do that. I'm sure that if the county requires it, the school would be happy to do it. It's a county road, so we have to complete.
Yeah, they're going to review it, and
Absolutely.
and
Right.
they'll look
They'll make a
at the
recommendation.
numbers and make sure it
And the
works.
school has the land, the frontage available in order to do that if that's necessary, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll just chime in on that. It just makes common sense when you have that many cars coming in at one time. You have to have, you have to have a right turn lane. You can't have cars backed up on the main road, cars that are going through. You have to have a place for the cars to stack up going to the school.
I'm sure the school would have no objection.
Any other?
Just to reinforce Alina's point, is that this is a large site. We do have the land in front to be able to push things back. We have that cushion. In fact, you can see where we placed the building, you can see that we have the parking, you can see that we have green area. So we really have the ability to adjust that and make that as functional as possible.
Just the question on the Safe Routes to School plan. I guess if we require there be a plan, and you're saying that it's up to us in the county to do it.
The school fully supports the idea of a plan and making that part of the master plan. The funding for it is what we were saying has to be done for joint, since it's federal funds, that intermittent funding is available. So the school's not guaranteed they will get the funding, but they're completely on board with the idea of planning for it.
Now, let me ask something. I can't tell from the site plan, but if you have enough land, I would, I know most of the schools don't let all the cars in because the driveways are reserved for the school buses, and the civilian cars are not allowed in the same area. So I would think, and I can't tell if it's planned for here,
Right.
that to keep the disturbance on Claremont Road to a minimum, or there be some kind of circular driveway that the civilian cars can use, other than the school buses,
Well,
around the outside perimeter of the school property, so they can just flow in and out without disturbing the school buses or the students. It takes time to drop off kids.
absolutely, I agree with you. And the main drive is designed wide, although it's one way, it's designed wide enough for two vehicles to pass. And if the buses are parked, there is ample room for the vehicle to pass the buses. However, there's 2 rows of parking right in front of it, and you have the parking aisles that you can go through the parking areas and exit the school without disturbing the buses.
Yeah. And the reason I bring up a new site like this, you have the luxury of planning for that.
Absolutely.
A lot of older schools where we never planned for that many cars or vehicles to come, and becomes a nuisance to people who aren't going to the school.
Right,
Okay, in the morning.
absolutely.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let me just ask Mark, do we have a complete streets ordinance in this town?
no.
Anything else?
A few questions, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me that the main impact that's been identified is the intersection of South Middlebush and Claremont in the morning peak hour.
Yes.
And you had mentioned that the retiming of that traffic signal could mitigate that impact.
Yes.
Could you describe I guess the questions I have related to that is, I don't know if it's been described, what would be done in terms of retiming and how much better that retiming would make it? Who would be doing that and when that retiming would be done?
The first part of your question, I really don't have a good answer for regarding the how it's going to be retimed, because I can't. I'm not designing an intersection currently, so I don't know exactly how much I can take away from the main road and put on the side road, timing wise, how I can balance it out better. I would have to, obviously, the design team at Pannoni will actually be designing the intersection in coordination with the county.
Okay.
The county would have to be closely involved in approval process, anything to do with that intersection. It would have to be at the county's jurisdiction. And
an application to the county will be made before the school is built, correct?
Absolutely.
And they will require updated traffic studies related to the right turn in and the intersection and timing of the intersection as well, correct?
Correct.
So both South Middlebush and Claremont are county roads,
Yes.
but the traffic study makes certain assumptions, does it not, of where the traffic may be coming from?
Yes, it is conservative in the assumptions.
Claremont is a county road?
Claremont's, yes.
Yep.
Yes, 648.
Okay. Fascinating.
So are you basically committing that whatever changes to timing, or if they're requiring some changes to the actual physical modifications to the intersection, that the school board would be paying for those improvements?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because this is going to happen before the school opens, too. We will not be able to open the school without having those approvals in hand.
Okay. And what you're saying is you can't tell us exactly what those improvements would be, the nature of those, because you don't know exactly what where the different people would be coming from. You're going to have to figure that out as it gets closer to the time you're going to build it.
Correct.
Since both roads are county roads, you're going to have to work that out with the county.
That's correct.
And
In fact,
school board.
what we're committing to and what we're really required to do is make sure that we have a process, we have a team in place, we have the expertise on our staff with Pannoni Associates who have done many, many county joint projects with doing this. So we have the expertise and the team. And what we had to do is, in terms of, for projects like this, the public has to vote in support of the whole concept as well as the funding source for the project. And so what we have to do is allocate money early on for site improvements such as that. And that's what we're committing to.
So basically, there's a very set process that you have to go through. So you're not at that point yet to do that study. When you reach the level 7 and we're at like level 2, that's when you get to it. So
That's correct.
this isn't like the typical use variance application, because we don't even hear the site plan later on.
Correct.
You're coming to us at this stage, and at the later stage, at whatever that step, you're going to go and work out with the county the actual details, because that's the appropriate time.
That's right.
Is that correct?
And that is correct, and then we actually have the final state. We will not have our final educational approval without all that attestment. We actually have to take our information at the county level, send it to the State Department of Education, and they have to see that we have actually done our due diligence and our full design as well, because they ultimately have the full real site approval in terms of how a school operates and its function and safety. So we have one other level that we have to abide by.
One other, Mr. Chairman. There's been some mention or questions already regarding lighting, and I'm sure some of the residents, the neighbors are going to have some comments about screening and buffering. And the question was raised, are there requirements? The answer is technically no, because it's it's not one of the listed permitted uses. But in other zones in the township where schools are permitted, they're permitted as called conditional uses, subject to a whole slew of different requirements. And where schools are permitted, there are some very specific buffering and lighting requirements. Speaking of lighting, it talks about minimizing glare, using shoebox light fixtures, high cutoff, that the light source shall be fully concealed, that the light levels have to be 0.0 foot candles at the property line, which I think in this situation, you're building so far, and the parking lot's so far from the surrounding properties, I can't imagine that would be an issue. And then that the lighting fixtures are limited to 15 feet in height and 250 watts in power. And then in terms of buffering, what the board usually does in a situation like this where they have a conditional use or, a church or a school in a residential zone, basically, the board tries to implore the applicant to retain as many of the existing trees on the perimeter as possible, and then to the degree that there are some gaps, the board asks the applicant to meet the letter of the law in terms of the ordinance. And there's two different ways to do that. One is a 15-foot wide buffer containing a double staggered row of evergreens that are 6 to 8 feet at planting and a fence, or a triple staggered row of evergreens, 10 feet on center, 6 to 8 feet in height. And again, that would be what we've done in the past, is that's where there are gaps, and otherwise, the emphasis on trying to retain existing vegetation.
But that wouldn't happen until an actual site
Well-
plan was presented now, would it?
Well,
Or
well,
do
and-
we
and I'll-
address
You don't
that
hear the
here?
site plan.
Yeah, and I'll get to that in a second. Actually, the question to the applicant is, would you have any objection to complying with those if the board was
No
inclined to approve
objections,
it?
no objections.
And then, Laura, to answer your question, this board actually, in the township, doesn't actually approve the site plan. They're here for the use,
You're right.
and the state actually approves the site plan. But they've indicated that they would comply with that in their application to the state. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Let me just ask, have you ever worked with Somerset County?
Yes,
So you know the people over there?
yes, very well, yes.
Okay,
I currently have several projects with them right now.
great.
Anything else? All right, you said your testimony is completed. All right, we're about then to open to the public. We will be taking the first part of this session to have you ask questions concerning the testimony that you've heard. This is not a time to make a statement. We don't want to hear, I don't want this because I don't like it. You can do that later. Your questions should bring out information that will help us in our deliberations. The other thing I need to do before we start, in the interest of the second application in the evening, how many of you would expect to ask questions or make a statement later on? How many people would be? All right, you can make, we just need to know that to decide whether we need to carry the next application to the next meeting, because we want everyone to have an ample opportunity to speak. Okay, that being said, we're open to the public for questions. Anybody who wants to come, raise your hand. All right, lady in the back was first. Come up to the podium.
Why don't they just line up?
You could just line up if you want behind. I would also ask for everybody's benefit that if someone steals your question because they come before you, there's no need to repeat it. If you have something different, it would be more beneficial. Okay, we just need your name and address and question.
Make sure the mic is working.
No.
No, you have to turn it on.
Okay, there we go. My name is Karen White,
You
and...
have to stay in pretty close.
Okay, my name is Karen White, and my address is 106 Pear Tree Lane. And my concern here tonight is traffic, and I've heard a lot of discussion about the traffic from the school to South Middlebush Road, but I have heard no discussion of the traffic going the other way on Claremont. Now, every morning I have to come out of Society Hill Boulevard and make a left onto Claremont. And with the added traffic, because, we already do have a school in the area, now you're going to put a second school in, how am I going to make that left-hand turn in the morning with added traffic? Would there be some way to have like a traffic light or something?
Okay, well,
What's the street that you're turning on?
Sometimes boards collect all the questions.
That left Society Hill Road?
Society Hill Boulevard.
Do you have numbers
You have
on
a
it?
map somewhere?
Okay, so she has numbers.
Ms. White, can you put it back up on the,
So everybody, yeah.
yeah, thank you.
So give us your trip.
Boulevard, and I make a left on Claremont to get to South Middlebush Road.
Right.
All the discussion's been from here to here, but there's been no discussion of the impact of the traffic on the residents, because I'm not the only one who's going to.
pick the mic up, please?
Pull the mic out of the sleeve.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so the discussion tonight has concerned traffic from here to South Middlebush, which is significant. However, there's been no talk of the impact of the traffic on the residents on this part that have to travel this part of Claremont. Okay, and like I say, I have difficulty as it is making the left-hand turn. It's going to get worse with the traffic of the school buses and the parents dropping off and the teachers coming and going. Have you done a study? Are you going to do anything about that?
Well, there is traffic counts available for a Baylor Road intersection, which is after your intersection. And,
Okay.
yes, it's, there is counts available for that. And that level of service was going from B to C. Now, it's about the development that's feeding Baylor is about the same size as your development, so I anticipate the same effect on your development.
But at a Baylor, it's a right-hand turn going towards South Middlebush.
The level of service is for unsignalized intersection, and I'm talking about only the movement that requires delay, which is a left-hand turn. The right-hand turn, it's based on gap acceptance, so if you accept the gap, you go. If you don't, you wait. The other point I would like to make regarding the left-hand turn, I do understand your concern. However, out of the Society Hill Boulevard, there's 3 other ways to get to Route 20. There's another way to get to Route 27. There's another way to get to
Yes, I know,
South Middlebush.
but this is the most direct route, and I don't want to have to spend my mornings driving all over Somerset County just to get to South Middlebush Road.
Absolutely, and from what we anticipate, the same amount of kids coming out of or kids being driven to school from South Middlebush development will be still driven to school after the school opening. Perhaps it will be taking a different route, but the traffic counts will not change significantly. Therefore, I would have to say that at this time it does not require traffic counts. However, if the time arises, if the need arises, and it becomes necessary, that absolutely the county will require traffic counts, and it would have to be evaluated at that time.
Okay, I'm finished, but I just want to say I find it very difficult to believe that there's not going to be any change.
I didn't say any change on the intersection. I do say the intersection will change from B to C as the Baylor Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Lynette Day, and I live at 88 Pear Tree Lane in Franklin Park. I've actually...
Put your voice.
Okay, sorry. I've actually gone to the here to look at the maps and to look at the proposals that you have in front of you. And I'd like to know why nothing has been said about pre-care and aftercare, after school, whatever it's called, because that will also impact traffic at earlier times when people are trying to get to work. You know, your timing you talked about didn't really fit, I think, what most people confront in the morning.
Currently, the school does provide a level called pre-kindergarten to all their elementary schools. And this school would be no different. It'd also have a pre-kindergarten. This is not early childhood. We're not talking very, very young children. We're talking children age 4. They're 1 year before kindergarten. They are also provided with busing, and the timing of their particular day is slightly different, so it's a little bit less on peak time, start a bit later, end a little bit earlier, and that would continue. But there is not it's not in early childhood, 0 through age 3. This is only pre-kindergarten students, age 4.
No, I believe what I read was 20% of the students would be involved in before and after care. Is that correct? Isn't that what I read? Before and after care.
That's
To
an
me,
That's an
that's-
assumption that the report makes currently. We do not know the exact numbers of the students who would attend.
well, this whole
before
thing
and
is
after.
based on a lot of assumptions.
Absolutely.
From what I can
I
tell.
agree.
So that involves, according to your information, 1.6 kids per car. Figured it out, and it looks like before and after care, which would be at more peak hours of traffic, is an additional 106 to 125 cars.
But that would not coincide with the peak traffic for the school.
Well, it's before school starts. It's still peak traffic time for people who are traveling on South Middlebush and Claremont Road. By the way, I also find it interesting that you didn't mention that Claremont Road is what, a little bit more than a mile long only? There is one lane in each direction.
Yes, there is.
Very small area for those turn lanes. 16 buses from that report. 16 buses is how many car lengths? When you talk about the timing of those cars making those turns.
Yes, but not all 16 buses will be arriving to school at the same time. I mean, they're coming from
It's
different
pretty
directions.
close to start time of school. They're going to be arriving, aren't they? Just asking. I'd like to know, if anyone knows, those of us who live close enough to the property, because actually, that's right in my backyard, okay? I appreciate Mr. Healy talking about the screening, because in the winter, when the trees drop their leaves, I can see the field, the farm, okay? So I will be able to see the school from my backyard. So I appreciate when he mentioned the pine trees and whatever, and I hope that's going to be taken into consideration for the entire length of our association's property that will be affected. I can see my house from here, actually. I'd like to know, how do we get notified about these future meetings? We were notified because we live close enough. How do we get notified when the state is going to have their meetings so that we can also attend those?
The district puts notification of any meetings on their website, as well as they make it, public information. There'll be other venues. The state review does not have public sessions for state review. It's done by professionals at their Bureau of Education Facility Planning.
So state review is not open to the public, is that
Correct.
what you said?
Correct. But the
Okay.
results are, the results will be made public and posted on the school district website.
The school district website. Okay. And how about the cost of the school? What are the estimates?
Currently, the school is approximately 120,000 square feet in size. The estimate, we're actually down at the Department of Education, and I'm going to hedge my answer only because we are currently waiting for the report for potential funding for the school that will be coming out of the state. I don't know if anyone here in the audience has heard, but Governor Christie has announced a program for reimbursing some school projects. The district will be applying for those additional grants. The entry time is probably over the next 3 months. This has just recently been unveiled as approximately $475 million that's going to be made available for school construction funding. So at this moment in time, I do not know what the local share is versus what the state share will be of the school, but at 120,000 square feet of area, we're talking about the building cost is probably about $30 million plus site cost of $10 million. So we're talking the project in real dollars is about $40 million. We do not know what the local share is. We do not know what the state share is, but in terms of the magnitude of the project.
Okay, that is all very relevant and important to the public, but it's not, I don't think, relevant to our discussion over
not
a
answer
use variance.
Okay.
Sorry.
Once again, another question about the use, or the proposed use. I counted 7 potential athletic fields on that property map.
I would like to speak to that. This is an elementary school. The only requirement for physical education is what they called a physical education field, an open field for students in this age group. There is no requirement for any athletics in an elementary school. What we're showing dotted in for your consideration in terms of the master planning impact is the idea that we know school sites have been used by the local municipality with a recreation department. We fully intend to make that as a resource available for the municipality, but whether there are any athletic fields or not is to be determined by the municipality. The school district does not require athletic fields on the site for the elementary program, only physical education.
The council is the place to ask the next question as far as athletic fields.
Well, how do they buffer for noise?
They're buffering their property, their entire site.
Yeah, if
Athletic
in-
fields
yeah.
are within that, if there are any.
Yeah, if and when those athletic fields are ever proposed or built, that'll be done by the council. They're only being shown on a conceptual basis because the township and the Board of Ed have a very good working relationship. They had the space. They may or may not be built. That'll be a future discussion that they're not being proposed. If they are, that'll be the discussion that'll be taking place between staff and council.
Okay, but I feel it's important for people to know who haven't had the opportunity to come here and review all the details that it should be mentioned, okay, the quantities. And lastly, the stream is right behind my house. That has flash flooded. Claremont Road has been also blocked off due to flooding. I'd like to know how the building of this school on the property will affect the drainage and the flood zoning and whatever else you can address, because I really don't know about it.
Sure. As I mentioned, the project is determined to be a major development, and that means we have to provide stormwater management for the site. Now, the current state regulations require you to either match the existing flows from the site or have 50% for the 2-year storm, 75% for the 10-year storm, and 80% of the current existing runoff of the site. So therefore, we have to reduce the current existing site flows to those flows. So that means the site as proposed would have to have a stormwater management devices to decrease the existing runoff from the site rather than increase them.
And the stream would be environmentally protected?
Correct. It's an NJDP regulated stream, therefore any encroachment to the stream, outfall, anything, we have to go to NJDP.
Okay.
If
All
I could
right.
ask a follow-up to that.
Sure.
You're going to, at some point, have to design, excuse me, a stormwater management plan
Absolutely.
that shows how much runoff, how much drainage is going to be flowing off of the buildings and the parking lots.
Correct.
Showing how that runoff is going to be captured.
Correct.
In terms of drainage, detention basins or retention basins.
Right.
Who reviews that? Who approves it? Do you know?
Part of the site plan that gets approved. Sorry, it's part of the site plan that gets approved by the DOE.
DOE. And do they have to refer that to the DEP?
Well, and the DNR Canal has to issue their approval for
We will
that.
have every single municipal code requirement, but the school district is looking to go beyond that. We're trying to make this school, what we're saying is a LEED school, leadership in environmental, energy and environmental design. Our philosophy is to keep the water on the site and have it filtrate into the subsurface. So we'll be going after LEED points that work towards that. So we're hoping to really be that good neighbor that actually makes a net benefit. Not only are we going to reduce the net runoff, we're going to make sure the water stays where it really should stay and go into the aquifer. And that's going to be part of the lesson of the school.
And to answer that question directly also, since it's on a county road, they regulate county drainage on the county roads as well, so they will review it as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Valerie Martelli. I live at 41 Crabapple Lane, which is in Society Hill at Somerset 1, which is right next to the school. I'm currently serving as a member of the Board of Trustees for the condo association there, and homes, including where the individual who spoke before, Lynette Medina, lives. We've had some issues with getting an elevation certificate for that stream. Currently, there are banks that are giving some homeowners difficulty in refinancing or getting mortgages in the area because they say that the flood zone has changed there. Currently, the FEMA map has not been finalized for that area. We are engaging as an association to hire an engineer to do a study there. We'd like to save some money, if at all possible, if a study has been done there, because there are certain properties, the ones just abutting that, area, that may be required to have flood insurance at this point, because they're considered to be in Zone A. Could you speak to any of that?
I can speak. Yes, I can certainly do so. Right now, the one thing that I don't know is what your property elevation is. What I can tell you is we did do an approximation method. It's one of the methods that is allowed by FEMA, the DEP, and to determine the flood elevation within the stream. And we did do the approximation method. It's very conservative, and the elevation, the flood hazard elevation was determined to be 104. Now, I don't know what that in regards to your property elevation, your house finished floor elevation, that would be on your survey. So I don't know if that totally answers your question.
No. Currently, from the information that we have, it's not currently delineated by
Correct.
NJDEP.
Correct.
So all we have are FEMA maps at this point. And there are some other properties, Society Hill 3, which is sort of close to the area there. They actually had to hire an engineer to get certain properties rezoned.
Okay.
So if we're having issues with flood insurance, I'm wondering if the school is going to also have issues regarding that. And what can be done, again, we need to stress, mitigating any destruction of that stream and that area there. So it's a very high concern for us.
Absolutely, I understand. And right now, what I can tell you is the school will be elevated above the flood elevation, but I cannot tell you exactly how far the flood elevation extends on the site, but I can tell you it stays within the 300-foot buffer.
When would you be required to have any kind of site elevation study done in order?
We do have we don't have finished floor elevation. We don't have grading plans, which will determine the elevations, the proposed elevation, the existing elevations, I can tell you.
Those are prepared after the project is approved by the voters, and we have funding for that. The
Okay.
project basically stops at this point. We have to get all the reviews, we have to have the comments here, we have to go to the state, and then eventually it goes to the public, and the public either say yes or no to the project. And if it says yes, then we go immediately into the engineering portion of the project.
Right, so that's not anything that you'll be doing anytime soon?
no.
Because the FEMA maps are not going to be finalized until at least 2014 or beyond.
That's right. One of the things that has been prepared that is making its way through reviews is what's called an environmental impact, the 215. We do have that, which may have some additional information. It's not an approved plan yet. It's just gone to the Department of Environmental Protection and gone to the Department of Education for their review and comments, so that the Board of Education will have that document once it's finalized and been approved by all entities.
About how long is that process?
I would say that's probably within the next 3 months.
Okay.
That's helpful.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next. Thank you.
My name's Andre Mayfield. I live at 10 Garrettson Drive, but we also own 23 Townsend, and 10 Garrettson Drive is here, and 23 Townsend is somewhere over there. We also pay taxes at 3 other properties here in the township. And I have 2 questions. The first question is, we have septic and well water. And excuse the hat, because I purchased this property because I have a skin condition that my environmental problems affect. So I purchased this 10 Garrettson Drive property because this was an agricultural site. And we're concerned with our well and our septic. Can you tell us more?
Well, I can only speak to the fact that it will not be on septic nor on well water. The site will be public sewer, public water.
I'm sorry. My question is, how, if at all, will it affect my septic and I'm not concerned with?
But I think when she said that it's on public water and public sewer, like, just I think the fact that they're not going to be putting in a well themselves.
Okay.
I think they're not going to be drawing upon the groundwater.
Right,
Gotcha.
we're not.
From that perspective, I think that's.
It's not lowering your.
And maybe you could speak to just generally the stormwater. I think that would be the one thing, perhaps, one thing I would think that possibly, perhaps in your mind, might affect the septic or the wells, just the fact that there will be more runoff from the site, from the buildings and the asphalt.
Right, and the runoff would be, like I testified previously, would be mitigated by proposing the detention basin that's on site. Now, it's not infiltration basin, it's detention basin.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
The next question is, in your report, it says that 35% of the site is pretty much wetland, which we have several national, approximately 7 departments that,
Regulate with.
not only regulate, they actually give initiatives to protect. Why would we choose a site to build there when our national government's trying to protect these areas?
In fact, one of the beneficial use of a school site is that we're only going to be developing approximately 14 acres of 43 acres. So we're going to have most of the land undeveloped. That's the positive thing. The idea is that this is actually a good joint use of having an area next to a 300 buffer, next to a stream, next to areas that we're going to try and keep every tree or add trees to it. In other words, the school has the ability, because it's a large parcel of land, of only developing approximately that 14 acres and keeping the rest as natural as possible. That's part of the beneficial use of it.
Can somebody maybe just go back to the map, show where the wetlands and the stream are, and then where the 300-foot buffer is?
Right.
I think it might show up on the site plan better.
The
if you actually
wetlands
have
are
the line.
associated with the stream.
And then just show where the school is in relation to that.
So referring to A1, Alina?
Yes, I'm referring to A1. The wetlands limit line is basically on the east side of the property. It's this dashed line. And there is a 50-foot buffer associated, which is this darker dashed line associated with it. So it's only on that side of the
I know a
property.
map that I had seen had some type of agricultural wetland here as well. Is that?
It hasn't been mapped, and the reason it hasn't been mapped, I mean, we did have the wetlands located and approved by DEP. That means the DEP deemed that these are not wetlands.
And then in addition to that 50-foot buffer, there's also a 300-foot buffer, correct?
Right, and then just so you understand, if this is the wetlands, and they will be protected by this land area, which is protected by DEP. Any encroachment in this land
I'm sorry,
area.
I do have a third question.
Sure.
How will this the water quality in this stream be affected, if at all?
Well, we are required to treat the site for water quality. So we will be proposing according to in the NJDEP, we are required 800%. 80% total suspended solid removal from the site. That means 80% we have to remove any devices. So the bioretention swale, which is proposed on site, will remove the majority of pollutants.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go
Is
ahead.
there any, where can we, what do we have to do as residents to prevent what they're doing? Other than the website that was mentioned, is there anything else as residents that we can do to prevent what they're doing?
That you can do for what purpose?
To stop, I mean, just
Stop the school.
stop what they're doing.
Well, my other
Build-
suggestion would go, this has to be voted on by the public in a referendum. So there'll be a full election process.
Okay,
You always have the option to attend a Board of Ed meeting.
okay. Thank you.
Dawn Williams for Marion Avenue, and unfortunately, I think I'm one of the people most greatly affected in this room just by mere location of where my house is. This is Marion Avenue, which is a one-way street, and I know I've heard other people talking about the traffic that they're going to have working on getting around. I'm coming out of a one-way street. You want to put the entrance to the school directly across from our street, where in the morning time, it is already very difficult at certain periods to make the left onto Claremont. There's no alternative. There's no other way for us to go. You also want to add a left turn lane. That's going to give us an extra lane to have to cross over. Again, you're going to make us compete with the additional traffic, and for your engineering estimates, you've been saying how everything's conservative. We should be doing the opposite. Everything should be based on what's the worst case scenario. The volume has continued to grow in the area. The traffic has increased greatly since...
Ma'am, conservative means worst case in this.
No, but I'm
It's
saying...
the opposite. When you have a conservative estimate,
No, I know
means you
you're
take the
conservative
worst
with
case.
the faculty and the staff. But what I want to get to is the traffic survey described Claremont as a D, and you said that you believed it would remain a D. I don't see how that's physically possible when I can tell you from experience, we already have congestion where it's sometimes difficult to get out. And I believe with the way you're designing it, it's going to force us, we're basically going to have to make a right. There's no way in the morning hours we're going to be able to turn left in that type of competition.
To answer this question, I just would like to tell you that the comparison analysis that we performed was for 2017 year, full, no build, as if this school is not built, versus the build condition. So that's where I was talking to you, the level of services. The traffic counts that were taken at the intersection were grown by a growth number to the 200 to the new year, 2017 year, and those were the studied numbers, not the current traffic.
But that's what I'm telling you, the numbers you're saying now are more like what we're facing now.
Okay.
We're sitting with those types of delays that you're anticipating already. What you're saying you're going to progress to, we experience on a regular basis. And I don't know why the study didn't pick up, because I'm very familiar with traffic studies.
Right.
I don't know why it didn't pick it up. I don't know if it was the week that it fell on, or some type of anomaly that played into it, whether certain schools
understand.
were in or out. But I can tell you from experience that there's definitely more volume in that whole stretch of Claremont
Right.
than what seems to have been indicated in the reports. Again, reassessment would have to be done to confirm that, but
Of course.
based on experience, that's what everyone that lives in that area will be able to tell you.
The traffic counts that we have were obtained from the county. So the county performed the traffic counts for the intersections that I've mentioned.
At any point, did you consider relocating the entrances and exits to not directly impact existing intersections? And what I mean by that
Not
is
aligning
for
them?
your
Not aligning them?
Yeah, if you were to bring your driveway in, for those of you that are up there towards South Middlebush, you could wind it in through this open property, come into the school, exit, and then do the same thing for Matawang, stagger it one direction or the other so that the existing residents whose streets intersect with Claremont aren't competing directly with the traffic getting into and out of the school. You're making it a lot harder for us just to live. If you move the locations of just the driveways alone, it's something that we could benefit from and make the pain, a little less severe. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Makes sense.
Yeah, everything's under consideration.
Sorry.
What, you have to understand that we're going to be working with the county on this, but we are open to all considerations. There's no reason to make something worse if we can make it better. Absolutely, under consideration, good input.
The quality of life concerns that have come up, I really appreciate those, because it does show that you are thinking about the community, and I can tell you've been doing this for a very long time. You've got a lot of the right answers, but what we want to see is, you talked about we consulted the community, but those of us who are closest to this is our first conversation with you. Or anybody directly involved in this project.
You've gotten us some good information now. Let's be careful not to move into a statement.
I'm not trying to, I just want, I got that written down.
You have that opportunity coming.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the
Go ahead.
As compared to your street, what is the traffic like on Society Hill Boulevard coming out onto this road?
It's all timing. I mean, it's going to depend on when
Is there more cars or less cars coming out
well,
of
no,
Society
we're
Hill
both
Boulevard?
competing with the similar traffic on Claremont. The difference is what's going westbound turns off onto Society Hill or eastbound and versus what, continues straight through. Some of it that's coming up from 27 turns into Society Hill Boulevard to return into that community, so it doesn't make it all the way out to South Middlebush. But that's not to say that there aren't cars coming to and from that direction. You get the other side of it where people are trying to get to the other end, the other through streets. Some people commute South Middlebush, some people commute 27. So I'm going to say it's pretty comparable. It's not extreme difference, but the point is just competing with the additional traffic, especially when you go and add entrances and exits at the exact locations where our streets are. That really compounds problems.
Just, was there any particular reason that you didn't include Society Hill Boulevard in your?
The county is the one who excuse me, the county is the one who actually told us which intersections to study, and they provided the counts for us to make our determinations. So the Society Hill was not one of the.
It's the county's counts that we're talking about here.
Yes.
But we can estimate the number of vehicles coming out of Society Hill by using the traffic numbers, and it looks like during the peak hours, it's approximately 50 during this peak hour in the morning come out of Society Hill, versus on Baylor, it's 68 would be making the left out of Society Hill, about 50 would be making the left. Versus at Marion,
I'm not sure.
it's much lower.
I'm not sure if the traffic report you have is different from the one that was in the folder. That's the one I looked at, actually, that's sitting out on top of the folder. But on page 11, you talked about how reassessments were going to be done. You talked about the intersection with the light.
Absolutely.
But you didn't talk about the other intersections in that plan. And that's concerning because we're going to be affected. So pre-planning, I think, if you don't pre-plan it, disaster is going to happen because you can only fix so much after the fact.
Absolutely.
So now's the time to get all this right. But it does concern me mostly that you're adding lanes and everything with locations, but haven't exactly been able to get to why we're putting them there. And not having that connection is what's going to cause the problem down the road.
I understand. The design process that we go through, usually you want to align the intersections with the opposing road because you don't want too many intersections along the same roadway. So you try to concentrate the intersections, and therefore you try to align that's why we align the driveways with the intersection rather than having intersection every 100 feet on your roadway.
On the other hand,
It's not an
if it
excellent
creates, if for a particular road, the alignment creates mayhem for the residents, then it would seem to me that you reconsider that.
Oh, absolutely.
Plus, you've aligned a road with a driveway here. You haven't aligned a road with a road.
That's correct. And the main thing I want to emphasize, when you look at this as a site to accommodate a school of this size, the nice thing about it, other than this swatch here, which we all mentioned, this is the part that we're not going to touch. This is a 300-foot buffer going to the stream. This area, we're not going to have any openings. In fact, that's one reason why we have our detention. We're going to do our water mitigation right here. Nothing can go into the stream. We really have it treated. But along this entire length, we actually have a lot of property frontage that we can be flexible on. We can do the accommodations along that edge. A lot of school sites are not as generous. You're much more confined as to where you get in and where you get in. You get flag lights. In fact, most of the district is facing much more constricted entry points. So this is actually, again, it's a beneficial type of property that allows us a lot of frontage, so we can accommodate that. So that's why I'm saying that there's no reason to say that this is the initial feedback we receive from county officials telling us to align it, but they get more input from this and say this could be a problem. There's no reason why we can't move it down.
All right, one more thing, because I'll save my quality of life stuff for the statement part, but actually, I'll let someone else talk, and I'll just save it for the end.
Just to summarize that, bring that issue, or summarize it. It's basically, ordinarily, you don't want to have offset intersections, where a driveway on one side or roadway is maybe 50 feet apart, 'cause then you have conflicting turn movements. So I guess the initial input from the county was have it line up. I guess what you're saying is, since you have such a large piece of land, when you're dealing with the county and dealing with the traffic improvements, this is something that you're going to raise to them and look to see if that's something that the county would approve, having the driveway further down?
Yes, well,
and not
we will
line up
include
with
this
Marion?
testimony and this feedback and bring it to the county's attention.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Hey, thank you. I think you were actually up first.
Good evening. My name is David Uvera. I'm also a resident of Marion Avenue. Have you guys considered building this school in another area than Claremont Road?
This is currently the property that is owned by the Board of Education that was bought with the municipal guidance and planning for it as a school site. It is what they're proposing as their school site. The school district does not own any other piece of property that it can build another school site on. An alternative is to be building additions at various school sites. That was studied. However, some of the existing school sites, elementary schools, are not large enough to accommodate additions. Some of them were. Elizabeth Avenue was identified as one that can accommodate. Hillcrest is identified as to accommodate it. But this is basically the best proposal right now based on the input and what the school district has already invested in.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
My name is Ann Hoffenberg. I live at 94 Pear Tree Lane, which is right in back of your school. It's right in back of the stream. And did I understand you correctly that you're treating the water, but you're taking 80% of the solids out? So there's 20% solids. Are they going into the stream?
That's the current requirement for
That's the current requirement.
for New Jersey. Correct.
There's a lot of wildlife back there. Has anybody done an environmental impact with respect to endangered species?
Yes. The buffer, just so you understand, the buffer, 300-foot buffer will allow for the 20% of solids also to dissipate. The water has to flow 300 feet to get to the stream. So the preserved land would filter it out.
Okay.
That's why it's a
So you're saying
DEP.
that it's not going to affect it at all? So even if there were endangered species, and you're saying you know that there aren't?
That is
It
correct.
won't make a
As I
difference.
mentioned, we did have an environmental 215 study that is now in the hands of Department of Environmental Protection and in the State Department of Education's hands. It's been a review. There were no endangered species identified. That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's a freshwater stream, but that's one reason why it is a 300-foot buffer. That's factor's been factored in. No additional endangered species.
That's the maximum required, 300-foot buffer The buffer goes from 50 to 150 to 300, and this site is 300-foot buffer, the maximum required by New Jersey. Yes, this is a tributary to a 9-mile route.
Hi, Gail Newman, 2 Conservancy Court. And while you've talked about South Middlebush and Claremont, how about the streets off of that? Because as it is, we get enough traffic from people thinking they can go around South Middlebush. Beekman, Stewart, we certainly have school buses now on Stewart, on Beekman, and there's tons of traffic there now. And of course, they go racing down there, and we have plenty of kids and plenty of walkers and bikers and so on and so forth. Any studies about the impact on the side streets and the streets leading out to 27? Because when, and I'll say you guys, because I don't know where the decision came from, but when you opened up Beekman across 27 at CVS, the traffic increased a great deal down, what is that, Beekman? So how now is this going to affect all of us down the extra streets? Because people are going to try and get away from the traffic on South Middlebush.
Well, number one, the school traffic that's coming from the district will be still coming from the same district. This is not something that's, so the traffic that's generated for the site is from your town already, from the surrounding properties. It's concentrated in the site, I agree with you, and that's why the study only studied the immediate intersections. Also, the county required us to study these intersections. It did not require to study any further intersections. However, if the county requires to do a study of further intersections, we'd be happy to do it and
You know, it's
comply.
not only the neighborhood that use these roads. There
Absolutely.
are tons of people that come in from Route 1 and surrounding 27 to go on South Middlebush to then go wherever they're going. So it isn't just our neighbors and who live here. And they're the ones trying to find shortcuts around this traffic that feeds onto South Middlebush. And the timing of the lights, that's not the problem. It's the amount of cars feeding onto South Middlebush. South Middlebush is a parking lot. I can sit there just sitting. It has nothing to do with the timing. You can have 50 seconds to get more cars out. You can't get them onto the road. The road is not big enough. It is not wide enough. And oh, by the way, we're competing with 18-wheelers. It's not wide enough for them. It's not tall enough for them as they bang down the branches and the leaves. It is not a traffic area.
Ma'am, do
And
you have
you're
a,
bringing in
excuse me,
more-
do you have a question? 'Cause you
Yeah,
can- you
is
can-
there a study? Is there a way to stop this? Is there a way to, everything is ambitious, but there are no,
Well, ma'am, the answer to that question is that when a specific use is being proposed, the county has jurisdiction over this, so they require a certain study area. They've done their study that they need to do at this time. Now, the county, when they get into greater design, may require a greater study, but that's at the county's jurisdiction, and the county's going to make that determination. We understand your frustration. The board really can't deal with outside the study area. They provided what was necessary in the study area that the county that has a jurisdiction. So those are the kind of issues that it's good to bring up, but we can't have a discussion on that because it isn't germane to this project at this time.
you're my board. You represent me. I pay taxes here. How do I get this? Everything else seems to be closed to the public. Who represents me? I just came from work. I came right here. I'm hearing about this also for the first time, and only because my neighbor who is bordered by this, I only live, I don't know, I can walk to his house. I never got a letter. How do we know about this? I don't want to be too flip here, but you're saying, well, you're not involved. Well, I didn't know I could get involved. I can't get involved. How do we get this done? You can time all the lights you want, but they're still flying past my house, and they're sitting in front of my house. They can't make the turn onto South Middlebush, and I know you're frustrated now, and so am I. I have the buses slamming up against that bridge because it's not even, over the easement. And yeah, the leaves disappear in the wintertime, and I'm going to have noise from the school.
Do you have a question?
When do you protect me? How do you protect me? You're my township.
As a board in this venue, we are your protection for this particular application and the issues, specific issues involved with it. You bring up a lot of valuable, relevant other issues with which I have a lot of sympathy with you because I live here and experience the same thing, over which we here tonight cannot do anything about. Some of those things you need to not be flippant, attend a council meeting, make your feelings known, attend a freeholders meeting in Somerville. The county, you have heard numerous times, has a lot of jurisdiction in some of the issues that you're bringing up. We'll do the very best we can to make sure we can protect what interests of yours, are relevant to you. But we also know that this is an inherent benefit. It is very difficult to ever turn down a school, even if it were legitimate in this situation. And you can be as upset as I would be, but our hands are tied with certain things. And I'm not going to sit and listen to us being chastised for things like that. We'll do everything and extract everything we can out of the school board and the applicant, everything legally. Anything we did illegally wouldn't benefit you anyway because it would just be overturned in another venue. And we do appreciate your input, but let's hope that you can be fair about it.
Well, the other thing is that this is, as was pointed out, subject to a referendum. You can vote up or down, and no money, no school.
Hi, my name is Venu Manini, and I live at 5 Arrowhead Lane. I'm in this town for almost 15 years, and I live nearby. And the question is a quick question to maybe personal. Any one of you guys did travel on that road in the mornings? Any one of you, three? No. Okay. Next meeting, can I request you, I don't know the question or statement, but can I request you guys to travel in the peak times on that road in the morning, then you understand the frustration. And the questions are, there is a under lane across the street that is Matawang. Are you planning to build a traffic light there too? Because the reason is the area, the South Millbush Road and Matawang in that area, there are about 100 houses close to. None of us can get on to the South Millbush Road in the morning. Okay, sometimes, matter of fact, that this town is literally failed in the traffic control in this township. I'm frustrated because of that reason. Sometimes I have to spend 40 minutes in my township to cross 5 miles, which is a shame. Do you know that one? I don't think so. So when I cannot I cannot even make a right turn onto the South Millbush Road, so I have to get onto the Claremont. If you build the school, there is no way I can make left or right onto the Claremont or get out of my work. So you got to make a big traffic light now.
What is your question? Don't tell me no.
Okay.
What is your question?
Question is, are you planning to build 3 traffic lights on the Claremont? One at the Society Hill Boulevard, Marion, and Matawang too. Okay, the second question, are you planning to expand that Claremont Road and knock off the houses? Because there's no room to walk or bike or anything like that one.
The answer is no to both questions.
Okay, and the other thing is when you elevate that area to build a school to avoid the flooding, will that cause the extra flooding to the houses opposite the site? No. Did you study that one?
I did answer this question previously. We are required to reduce the runoff from the site, and we will be reducing the runoff from the site.
Okay. When did you buy this site? I mean, when did the school district bought this site?
2006.
2006. And do you know that the town actually rejected the proposals of in a small store and a park in that area on the reasons, one of the major reasons for traffic addition?
Where? Where?
You know, if enough you guys are, I don't know how senior you guys are on the board, but the thing
Talking
is, you
about
know what-
Laird's, we approved like 5 years ago. You're talking about on the.
Oh, on the corner.
on the corner, one thing, and also there was another proposal that came, a park in the same site, and it was kind of, you know, one of the reasons for, you know, the traffic.
Yeah,
Yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with this application, sir.
but it was approved, yes.
It was approved, but it has nothing to do with this application.
No, what I mean is traffic addition was one of the reasons that was rejected, if I remember well. Can you please check that one? Okay. And the other thing is, you're saying that you're adding the public sewer to that site? Because there is no public sewer for us.
They're
We all have
connected to the existing public sewer, yes.
The answer is yes, they will be
Okay,
connecting.
answer is yes, okay. And the study, what you guys did in the traffic on the South Millbush Road, when you said, like, you know, 50-second, is it like, you know, during the traffic jams, or is it like a theoretical study that you came up?
The study spans between several hours. We identify the peak hour for the study for our site, and that's the peak hour that we use.
Okay, I'm almost done, and yeah, that's it. Right now, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? And we do appreciate it if it's new information.
Yes. Just a quick question and a comment.
Could you just give your name again? please,
Valerie
just for the record?
Martelli.
Thank you.
Okay. Regarding the mention of the proposed possible athletic fields and the use by the community of those fields, there is a park that was approved around the corner off of South Middlebush Road. And there are athletic fields going to be going into that area. So I guess my comment is that I hope that that's being coordinated with the open space and the Parks and Recreation Department so that we're not getting too much of something. And also, if you have more space, maybe you can use that space instead of putting athletic fields there to use it to mitigate the traffic issues.
The answer is yes. What we showed dotted was really just long-range planning that would be done in conjunction with the recreation for the municipality. It's not being proposed as part of the project. It's not going in the short term. It's not being funded at this time. There is no athletic fields going in.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that there is a park that's going to be built very close by. Okay.
We felt it was important to show what could happen long term for people to make informed decisions as to how the property may evolve over decades over time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're not, wait a minute. Maybe I made a mistake. We don't usually generally permit people to come twice during the same session.
I'm sorry, I'm just talking for half the people on my block. If you want someone else to ask a question, I will.
Well, you can't speak for other people.
It's a question.
It's
You have to
it's
speak
all of
for
us.
your,
We're all talking
Yeah, I
together,
mean,
so-
if you want to ask a question, fine. If not, you're going to have an opportunity afterwards. You'll be sworn in and you can say whatever you want.
No, it's just a quick question about the encroachment. I know you talked about the extra space on the property. In terms of Claremont, you talked about the...
use the mic.
I'm sorry. There is no real shoulder in that immediate area. From my property line to the white line, it's 12 to 18 inches. As my property comes in a little bit, I have to pull off the road of my lawnmower, so that tells you how narrow the space is. It's not an actual shoulder. Obviously, the volume that this is going to generate is going to require a wider roadway. We just want to ensure that if any movement is done, it's done on the side of the school property. And I know that that's what someone else was trying to say. We just don't want it coming into our properties, whether it's sidewalks, roadway. I didn't know if that was considered yet.
Yes.
So your
thank you.
question has to do...
As for encroachment, the road's going to have to be wider.
Yeah, so you're
so it's
talking
obvious.
about where any road
How they're going
widening
to push
would...
the road back, where they would start and end it. I didn't see that in the plans. There was no, cutout into the property design. It's all just straight, which is how Claremont is now.
If it's a county road, the right-of-way on a county road is usually 52 feet. So your property's right there. It's going to go 13 feet into your property if they widen that road.
It's 12 to 18 inches from the current shoulder line.
If there's going to be road widening and that's a county road, it's going to be the county that's going to make that determination.
Okay, I didn't know if they had any input on it, because you were saying how big the property is and that there was space on the front of it, so if that could be recommended, that's what we're asking.
I was clarifying along the frontage as opposed to the width of it, but you are absolutely correct. The county will control how the road is widened.
I mean, typically, in a situation like this, the widening occurs on the applicant's side, and if that requires them to dedicate more land for the right-of-way and to make the improvements on their side of the property, I don't know if I've actually ever seen a situation where the developer takes property on the other side of the street. Usually, it's incumbent upon them to give the land necessary for the improvements and to do the improvements on their side.
Thank you.
And I'm seeing heads shaking from the school board.
Okay, one last question.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Chan. I live at 2 Mattawang Drive. I am directly affected by this because I am actually facing the front of the school, where I believe that you mentioned that the egress that will be going towards into Mattawang.
Yeah.
So, right, so if this is the egress going here, how does it affect my community where we have currently at this point, people always constantly making U-turns on my property, destroying my driveways, always every morning. I looked at my neighbor's driveway and I feel sorry for him because he's got the size of a crater. I'm being honest with you. Secondly, my lawn every morning, someone's driving on it because there's no sidewalks. How are you going to mitigate against that? Because it's bad enough right now. Second question is, my wife always makes a left turn. Just the other day, there was an accident, okay? 2 cars, critical, lady was making a left turn from Mattawang into Claremont, and they got hurt. So my question to you is, as you implement this school infrastructure, you're greatly affecting our risk and our health to our community and to our area. So how do you mitigate against that?
Well, again, I have to say that the county will have jurisdiction. The county will have the accident data for the intersections. And if they require us to do any improvements regarding to the road widening, whichever improvement they require, we have to comply with those requirements. We have to get an approval from them.
Okay. The other issue I have is, question really, is you're also affecting community traffic, because what happens is that as people can't make a right into South Middlebush from Claremont, they're cutting into our community to get to South Middlebush. So my question to you is, have you done a study to see what is affected within the community that is directly next to where you're proposing to put the building?
Well, the study includes current traffic data at the intersection, whether it does not
That wasn't my question. My question was, how does it affect my community? Because I have people that are not part of the community that's going in and out because they want to get to South Middlebush or they're bypassing traffic. And same thing from the other way around. From South Middlebush, instead of making a left on Claremont, they cut through our communities and they try to make a left into out of Claremont. How are you addressing that issue?
We can't address the issue of people cutting through your property because
This is going to enhance that, right?
Well, sir, I think some of the issues you're bringing up are issues you have to address with Franklin Township and Somerset County. We can only talk about the issues that affect the applicant right now. If people are making illegal U-turns, you need to get the police department to be proactive on that.
It seems to me that with all of these questions involving the county, you may want to get 1 or 2 or 3 of you to attempt to have an appointment and meet with the county engineer and articulate your concerns. A lot of this we simply can't control.
Understood. Okay, I
Yeah,
apologize.
Reach out-
I'll hold off
no,
on those
no,
questions
no,
then.
but
I'm
you
okay.
should try and reach out to the county engineer, and that's my suggestion to you.
Yeah. I would suggest that you contact Bob Zaborowski. He's one of the chosen freeholders. He might even be the director now. He lives in Franklin Township, so he's more sympathetic and sensitive to issues in the town than some of the other freeholders are.
The county is usually very willing to meet with people.
Okay.
And that's your best chance to make an impression on them with what you want and what your problems are.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do feel sympathetic to the problems you issue, because I see traffic all over town. Luckily, I don't have to go to work. When I don't want to, I'm tired. But this board just has so much power, you know.
I understand.
Mr.
If this comes to fruition, how long would it take to build, and when would you start?
In fact, I wouldn't think it out of order if some of you got together and met with the county and representatives of the board, appropriate representatives, so everybody's there and everybody hears the same thing. And you let your concerns be known, and they hear everybody hears what the county, the people in charge at the county have to say. It is their road.
Thank you. If this came to fruition, how long would it take for you to build it? Because I would be living right across the street from as you're doing construction.
The project will take approximately 3 years to construct from the time it gets its funding. It's approximately 1 year in design development, then there's 6 months of approvals and permitting, and then approximately 18 months in construction.
So at earliest, about a year and a half?
No,
I'm
3
sorry,
years.
3 years.
3
Okay.
years after funding is approved by the voters.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just break in for 1 minute. That's the second matter on the agenda, New Jersey Buddhist Friara docket ZBA 120020. Due to the lateness of the hour, if anyone is here for that matter, that's going to be carried without any further public notice to July 11th, 2013, same room, 7:30 PM. There will not be any further notice, so if anyone's here for that matter, you can leave. It won't be heard this evening. It'll be heard on July 11th.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Just on my name is Davey Varro, Marion Avenue. To the board members, you heard our cry, right? I guess we're crying about the traffic. So please take that in consideration when you review this. Thank you.
All right, we'll close that portion of the public meeting. I guess now would be the time, if anyone has a statement to make, anything that you want us to know concerning this application, line up. You will have to be sworn in and then make your statement. And we would hope that we're not repeating one thing after another. We are still wide awake, even though it doesn't look like it sometimes, so we don't need to hear the same thing 5 times. All right? Come on up, please.
Okay, if you'll raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Name and address, please.
My name is Kim Wenner. I live at 4 Marion Avenue. In regards to the study, I know, we're all here. For the traffic thing, I actually stood outside of my property today and videotaped the cars going by. And there was a heck of a lot less time than the 55 seconds. Are we up for hearing a little bit of it, or you just hear the cars whiz by? I mean, I brought it with me.
It would be hard to put that in the record.
You can hear it.
Well, I mean, I think your testimony along the lines is sufficient, but, I mean, I don't know what the chairman...
These are cars going by.
So you're basically saying there's a lot more traffic than the
There's
traffic
a lot more
study?
traffic at 3 o'clock. This is 3 o'clock this afternoon.
I think we get the point on that, and actually, I'm not sure that that's helping at all, because we don't know we don't really know what that represents. It could be 10 cars coming by once, it could be a couple of things. We know that there's traffic there. We've heard that. The point's been made. I'm sure we've all driven down the street at some point. So maybe you could continue making your point and.
Okay, well, I just wanted to, that was basically my point. I just wanted, you know, if these people said that these studies were done and stuff like that, what time of the day was it done? It was basically my concern, because if it was done within an overall 24-hour period.
Well, I believe she mentioned that it was done during the peak traffic hours when they would be using the road and, you know, the general public would be using it.
Okay. There's a lot less than 55 seconds, I have to say. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, next. Anyone that wants to make a statement?
Traffic time.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You have to be sworn in first.
Okay. I never did that one.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name again and your address, please.
Venu Maneni at 5 Arrowhead Lane in Somerset. My statement is, unless you widen the South Middlebush Road to 4 lanes and widen the Claremont to by at least much more than what it is with a center lane, this project is gonna make the township as the, in the conditions really worse. And the intention is good. The township needs the good school, which is a very good idea, noble idea. But your choice of place is really, I can say, unintelligible. So what I mean to say is, it has to be a different location. So I sincerely believe that you should swap the site with the township in some other place, and without wasting the time, township resources and money and everything, go and grab the opportunity by swapping the place with some other place, and then go for the new school. That will actually help the township. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Okay, I'm going to swear you in. If you'll raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And your name and address again.
Dawn Williams, 4 Marion Avenue.
Okay.
I'm going to keep it brief. I just want to hit a couple of the quality of life things. I appreciate your time. I know you guys are probably all just ready to get out of here. But this is one of our few chances for you to really hear what we're concerned about. I purchased my home almost 12 years ago. I was very thorough. I did my homework. The one thing I didn't want to live near was a school. I made sure I was a half-mile away. I did check the zoning at the time. I knew there were minimum lot sizes for the area. I knew what the area was comprised of, and I believe that if the farm across the street ever did sell, it would become a housing complex much like what is on Mattawang now. Now it's becoming a school. I understand the need for schools, and I know this is going to go through. I'm a realist, but what I want to see is truly listen to us. Don't just say, okay, yeah, we want to hear you. Please put yourself in our shoes and what you would do if it was your home, your neighborhood, and what you would do to protect that. That's all we're really looking for in the long run. If this goes through, please do the best you can for us. We already hit all the traffic stuff, don't need to go into that again. The one thing I really would like you to reconsider, though, is changing those ingress-egress locations, because those direct confrontations are going to be problems for both of those streets. I appreciate the lighting that you had brought up. That was a huge factor, and it was actually written into my 7-page giant lettering spiel, but you covered it. So as long as, like you had mentioned, with the contingency that they are willing to agree with that, I think that will alleviate a lot of our concerns with the lighting. I am going to try and reach out for the county engineer, reference to possible speed limit reductions, as well as the road changes that we had discussed. The other thing was the buffer that you had discussed. You mentioned the total acreage of the property. It's very large. It encompasses a lot of neighbors. Yeah, my house happens to be one of the closest to it, but there's a lot of neighbors that it's going to impact, and doing what you can all the way around that property to build that buffer is going to affect all of us. We want to keep our privacy and our feeling that it's a home, and you want to keep your school feeling, not have kids looking in the backyard. So it works both ways. Ideally, you want to try and affect the neighborhoods as least as possible. And just by considering the things that we had discussed, I think that you can accomplish that if you really just make the effort to include that in your future plans.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then we'll close this portion of the meeting. Before we move on, I might make a suggestion to the last speaker, because I had a personal experience myself that turned out well. If you're going to involve the county, you might want to talk to traffic safety and the local police department. You might get them to come out and take a traffic safety survey, sit on the site, observe what's going on, and it gives you more clout when you go and speak to the county. Okay? I hesitate to say, but we had a traffic light changed in less than 2 months from beginning to end, using that way on a county road with the county assisting. So I have found them for the most part, very willing to meet and at least try to do what they can do for you.
I also had a positive experience with the county when they were planning on replacing the one-lane bridge in Greggstown with a two-lane bridge. We went down and we were able to convince them to simply rebuild it as a one-lane bridge. So they do listen, and they'll appreciate input. I don't think they really get that much, so you may be able to find some help there.
Okay, would you like to sum up?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question? A gentleman a few speakers ago was raising a concern about the exit and it being opposite Mattawang. Is there opportunity, a possibility to, just like the other entrance to concern raised on Marion, to investigate relocating that as well?
Yeah. Yes.
That's something you can commit that you'll, in your dealings with the county, you'll talk to them about looking into that as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just quickly.
Excuse me, one other thing, right here. One of the residents brought up about preschool hours and post-school hours, and you never talked anything about that at all. And before you do your summary, can you just elaborate a little bit more about what those activities are?
Some of the elementary schools have a program where students can be dropped off and go into their gymnasium multipurpose room and have a breakfast or have a meal before school starts. It's not super early, but it is before school. I would imagine that that's something that they may be offering at the school, comparable to the other elementary schools. In the afternoon, for after school, they have some club activities and programs for, that they allow students to stay a little later. Although the majority do take the bus at 3. There is a small program. The ones that I saw in a comparable one at Franklin Park, I think there was like 40 students in the after program that goes a little bit later. So I imagine it'd be very comparable to what the elementary schools are doing, would be offered at the
So
school.
how late is late and how early is early?
Based on my knowledge of Franklin Park School, I think the entry time was around 8, and so the bell was at 8:50, so it was 8. And the after-school might have been 4.
Oh, no, I think it goes much later than that.
I don't know.
I think it goes till 6.
6? I don't know, but it's
It's
just,
because people work until 5. I mean, I use that as
The
that school.
after-school program,
So
yeah.
then it was, you were flying there on 2 wheels just to get there by 6, but it was open till 6, and I believe that the preschool starts at 7 a.m. So it's open, it's got a longer life than you think.
okay, then
Maybe someone else here might have some information about
Mr. Edcito, the superintendent of schools here, so maybe he can ask.
Maybe he knows.
Sounds pretty accurate.
Wait, it's better. We'll pick you
Okay,
up.
sir, I want to swear you in. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do.
State and spell your last name and your
Edward
title.
Seto, S-E-T-O.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not every school's care program opens as early as 7, but some do. That's determined by need, if a particular school has that need, and not every school has that need. So in some schools, yes, in some schools, no, it's 7 or 8. In some schools, in most schools of the elementary schools, they do run till 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
That is accurate.
Right.
Does that cover it? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Just a follow-up to that, I would think that you would be obligated to talk about that and not just ignore it totally because of the hours, because that greatly does impact what the residents are talking about.
I think the answer, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the question earlier was, why didn't you evaluate that in your traffic study? And I think the answer is they look at the worst-case scenario, which is the peak hour in the morning and then the afternoon dismissal. And then since the aftercare is 20% of that, the assumption is, well, since that's only 1/5 of the traffic during the peak, it's assumed it's going to be less than the peak. So they evaluate those worst-case scenario morning and afternoon peaks.
School
Is that
hours,
correct?
Good save.
Thanks,
Making
Mr.
sure
Healy.
you have all the information.
Thank you. I'll just be brief. As you know, the variance for a school is an inherently beneficial use under the municipal land use law, and because it is an inherently beneficial use, it meets the positive criteria. When evaluating a use variance with an inherently beneficial use, you use the SECA balancing test that Alina had gone through, which is to identify the positive impacts, in this case, the school use and the inherently beneficial use, identify the negative impacts. Obviously, traffic is one of the negative impacts. Alina identified some possible other ones, the loss of farmland and the impact on the stream. Determine whether or not those impacts can be mitigated, and then perform a weighing analysis. In this case, the biggest one obviously is the traffic. In weighing that, it's on a county road. The county has jurisdiction. We're going to have to comply with all the county requirements. There were good comments raised by the public regarding possibly moving the ingress and egress so that they're not directly in front, using some of the street frontage that we have in front of the site to widen the road on our side to have a deceleration lane coming from Claremont and Middlebush. And Alina had talked about the timing of the signal to try to positively affect the impact on on the Middlebush intersection. All of those things are mitigating factors, which when you count the traffic as a negative impact and you accommodate those those mitigating factors, we think, and weigh those against the positive impacts of the school use. The fact that your master plan identifies this as a potential school site, both in its land use plan and its community facilities plan. Your utility plan identifies it as a sewer service area, particularly because this was planned to be a school site. The planning board obviously drafts the master plan. They identified it as the potential school site as well. It was put before the planning board last month or 2 months ago for a Section 31 review, and there were no negative comments on the use of this particular site for a school. So this is consistent with your master plan. And because it's consistent with your master plan, it will not have a substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially, and the word is substantially, impair the intent and purpose of the master plan and the zoning ordinance. So for those reasons, we think under the law, we meet the positive and the negative criteria, and we'll work with the county in order to mitigate the traffic on Claremont Road. And there were other conditions that I'm sure somebody was aware of that I wrote down as well that we'd be happy to include within any approval if you grant it.
I was obviously, as I think everybody on the board, very troubled by the traffic impact. And it's not clear to me that the traffic study really addressed that adequately.
I would agree.
And I think that as a condition of any approval, there would have to be a meeting that would include the board, some representative residents, and the county to get together and seriously hash out some of these problems. You described some ways to mitigate these problems. I'm not a traffic person. I have no idea what else could be done. But I think that you need to have all the stakeholders in a meeting, in a room, addressing this. This is going to be 3 years out now's the time to deal with this.
And yes and no. Yes, we will comply with that. The timing, based on what Gene had said, is you've got the referendum and then you've got a year in design. So just so that everybody's aware, this is not something that's going to happen with the county within the next couple of months. You're talking in that year period between the referendum, if it passes, and the design point. So at that point would be when we'd be hard engineering the plan and making an application to the county, and at that point, incorporating. And what we can do is give notice to the folks who were identified on the 200-foot list. And
I think maybe
provide
more than
assistance.
200 feet, certainly the people who, and I think that we can get you the names and addresses as part of the record here of at least the individuals who came and raised questions, and they should get notice.
I don't disagree with that. I think most of those were on the 200-foot list, although not all of them. We can provide that notice. I'm not suggesting that only those people can
No, I
participate.
understand that,
just
but
yet.
certainly these people who took the trouble to come and do the research and raise the issues, they should be part of any such discussion, or at least have an opportunity.
Yes, I agree.
I agree with my fellow board members, but in all due respect, I think any place in this town that we try and place a school, that there's going to be a monumental traffic problem. I don't know any major road in this town that doesn't have traffic. I find all kinds of shortcuts if I leave my house at New Brunswick and Davidson at 4 o'clock, I don't go down New Brunswick because I'll wait 3 or 4 lights to get on the. So wherever you go in this town, you have to find, it's horrible, the traffic in this town. So I agree with my fellow board members, but it's hard to place a school any place in this town where you're not going to have a traffic problem.
No, but you can, where
You
you're
can try
going to
mitigate.
place the school, you're going to try and at least, by way of planning, mitigate whatever problems that you are immediately apparent.
Well, we'll see how the process works, because historically, I want to commend the board from one point of view. It's about 14, 15 years ago, the planning board and the council asked the board for planning purposes to go out and identify school sites. And if possible, remember 15 years ago, there was a building boom. Land was horrendous, expensive, not that it isn't now, but relatively speaking. And if possible, actually tie up building sites so that on the board, we would know when applications come in where there might be schools. And it was a good planning perspective. Problem is, 15 years later, surrounding areas change, needs change, and there are other problems. I think as cooperative as the county is, I will also say they're slow to move on a lot of changes that might have helped ahead of time, unless you go after them. So we're in this situation. I think the board did what it was supposed to do, or what we wanted it as a town to do. There's obviously legitimate issues that have to be addressed. And I think if the board works diligently to help solve the problems, that this process will prove that it was a valuable one. They'll have saved money, they will have reserved a school site, and hopefully the people in the neighborhood will never probably be as happy as they are now, but at least it'll be livable. And it is a growing community, and as Mr. Reese said, there's traffic every place you go if you go at the wrong time of day, unfortunately. Now, I hope you're finished. Any board comments?
I have a question for our board attorney.
You always do, Bob.
Well, so that we do the resolutions the right way. Assuming that we agree with the argument that's made by the attorney representing the Board of Education here, what can we do in a resolution other than simply approve or disapprove? Can we add conditions to a use variance that we grant? For example, can we add a condition like the lights at the school have to be turned off within an hour after the last function? Can we go down to that level of granularity?
Well, I wrote down a number of conditions in my notes, so, I mean, the answer to your question is yes. You're looking at this as similar to a bifurcated application, although it's never coming back to you for site plan. So, to the extent that you're not stepping on the jurisdiction of other agencies and entities, you certainly can condition.
See, but that, we'd be stepping on the jurisdiction of the county if we said that the entrances to the school have to
Well,
be.
We could recommend.
No, I agree with you, and the way I'm going to phrase the resolution is the way I've been writing down these conditions. And to the extent that I believe it's part of your jurisdiction to do it, I'm going to write the resolution that way, and to the extent that I think it's more of a recommendation, I'm going to write it that way. So it will all be put into the resolution. And when you make a motion, we can go over it on the record as to some of the things.
What are the conditions and recommendations that you have down there? Because it may be simpler if somebody is going to make a motion to say, yeah, and that.
Well, just one other quick question, though. How much leeway does the Department of Education have to overrule any of these things?
Well, you got to be more specific. I mean,
Well,
they're
if we
here
say
because they're.
change the driveways, or we say put a sidewalk in, or turn the lights out an hour after the last function, can they say that's not
Well,
applicable?
a couple of things. Number one is, they have an attorney here, he's present, he's going to hear what he says. If he has a problem, I think he should speak up about it now. Otherwise, he can accept it, and then it's a non-issue. In terms of traffic and the alignment and in fact, the whole circulation, I heard some other suggestions about, maybe pulling the project further into the property so you have more flexibility, lanes and et cetera. I mean, they've already said on the record, and you're going to make as part of your findings, if you're going to approve it, that you've considered this as part of your findings, is that they're going to have a whole new reevaluation. And so in that respect, your resolution should reflect that you're recommending that. It's going to reflect that you want a meeting with the Board of Education, open, or members of the public there. I think you should require that this transcript go along with it and upon notice. But you're not, as far as I've heard, going to compel them to do anything traffic-wise, because it's still a fully open question. You have to make the determination tonight, if you're going to approve it, that you've looked at the positives and the negatives, and you've already determined that the positives are outweighing the negatives, and the negative, you should assume, is the traffic and that it needs improving. So, if you can't make that determination now, then you shouldn't approve the use. And I'm not steering you any way. It sounds like you've made that determination. Now you just want to try to make the negative a little less negative. And that's what the resolution should do, and we'll reflect that in that. But, I don't think it's proper for, even based upon what they've said, they're going to have to do more traffic determination. So I don't think it's proper for you to make a bright line determination on things like left turn lanes and right turn lanes. I think more input's needed.
Yeah, in a general sense, just on the design and how it interacts with the traffic situation, it's not workable. It just doesn't work. I mean, any standard that I know of, what we're looking at, as we look at it, and people, one after the next, got up and said, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And I agree with them. And when I look at, what we got here, we have, the numbers came from the county, and we have the description of the road on page 2. Northbound, southbound Palisades Avenue operates under one phase, eastbound and 18th Street operates on a split phasing. Somebody didn't
proofread it.
Somebody didn't proofread it, and certainly not the county, who gave the numbers. Page
Page-
2. Existing conditions.
On the bottom.
You don't need to apologize, you need to do better. You need to
It's
do
okay.
better.
It's just, like when I asked if you were working with the county and you said yes, I said, oh, good. You know, I mean, we want a lot out of the county if we redesign this site. And we need to have somebody who can go for it. We need to have someone that puts this,
They're going to be required to meet whatever conditions that the county imposes upon them. I mean, it's just like any other approval that you have. If the county does not approve it, they don't get to build the school no matter what. And as they stated, any improvements that the county are going to require are going to have to be in place prior to them opening the school. So I
But
think.
this is going to be a collaborative thing. I mean,
Yeah, and-
the county isn't going to be standing on
suggested
high.
And the township's going to be involved too, because we've been involved from the very beginning. We met with the county, all the county engineers on several occasions to go over our concerns and with the Board of Ed. So we've been working together. I think what the board is saying is not only you want the three of us, but you want us to also include the public. And we can surely do that. Like I said, we've met, I don't know, probably 5, 6 times with the Board of Ed, 3 times to go over this. And once again, this is the preliminary plan. They need the use variance. The site may change, the layout may change based on, where they find out the kids are coming from, listening to the public and everything else. They will not be able to build a school unless the county is satisfied and unless the township staff is satisfied, and you're telling us what your concerns are. Mark and I are at those meetings, and I can guarantee you that the county's going to get a transcript of this meeting, they're going to get the resolution, and we're going to make it crystal clear to them what the board's concerns, what the Board of Ed is talking about, and of course, what the public's talking about tonight.
Well, Pat, could you just lay out what your proposed conditions and recommendations?
Before you do that, Mr. Bradshaw, could I just comment directly to that? Part of the issue here is the way that the process works for a school. It's different than a private developer coming in. As Gene had said earlier, you do the long-range facilities plans, you come up with these plans, they're concept plans at this point. They can't be hard engineered at this point because they have to, 1, be approved by the DOE, and then 2, be approved by the public. And it's only after that point that they become hard engineered and the formal traffic studies prepared by the applicant are prepared. So it's where, if I were representing a private developer, we would come in with the new traffic studies related to those specific improvements related to the county road that can be made. But because of the nature of this particular process and the Board of Education process and the steps we have to go to, I think as Mr. Dominic had said at the beginning of the night, there might be 7 or 8 steps that we have to go through. We're at the early process. We need to get approval from this board before we can even apply to the Department of Education, which would then authorize us to go to the referendum. So the hard engineering is, as Gene said, a year down the line after the approval. All at that point, and because of the conditions of approval that if you approve it, that you'll put on, will require us to meet with the public and the township representatives and the county to sit down and hard engineer at least the ingress and egress and the impacts on the public at that point. So this is a little bit different than what you would see out of a normal applicant, but it's because of the process.
The use part of this and keeping the big picture in mind, I personally don't have a problem with. But I'm not used to, and I'm sure a lot of people on the board are not used to leaving so many open items and loose ends. And we definitely are not used to the idea that we will never see them again. So we don't have any idea.
And I understand that, and I can address part of what Mr. Bradshaw said and part of what Mr. Shepherd and Mr. McCracken asked, which is regarding the conditions. My opinion is that because this is a D variance and we need to get a D variance, it's one of the few opportunities where we need to come before the board for an approval rather than a recommendation. You can condition that approval on specific conditions. So I believe, and as Mr. Bradshaw said, I would object. I would, if I didn't object, then I would have the opportunity. So I think you can place the conditions on approval and that we would have to comply for them. But as he said, some of them are recommendations to another agency, and some of them are, you have to do them.
Right, for example, I think I would probably, as I write the resolution, would start with the meeting that Laura suggested. Again, you'll have the opportunity to, when a motion's made or seconded, to put it precisely on it, but as I wrote, a meeting with the Board of Ed and the public and the county, or with the county, to discuss mitigation of traffic issues, notice to the public. I wrote down, provide the transcripts or the video of the hearing. That would then flow into my notes here. I wrote down something to the effect, whatever county requires in terms of traffic improvements, whether it be lanes, installation of lights, timing of lights, the school board will comply. Cost will not prohibit compliance. I write it like that because that way it's easier to say, you can't get out of it. If you can't fund it, you can't get out of it, you can't do it. So, same with the sidewalks. Council had raised an issue about funding of it. I would write it something along the lines of sidewalks will be a condition subject to county approval and federal funding, meaning those are the two variables we don't have any choice over. We can't compel the county regarding sidewalks. And
Well, let me just say one thing. I know that Freeholder Palmer has been the head of the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority. They have control over that money. And I don't see why, in this case, where we have a very clear problem in getting two county roads in a workable situation for a school, that we can't go directly to Peter Palmer as a representative on transportation for Somerset County and actually go for that.
Okay.
And can we make sure that, maybe it's just me, but the words also should be added that the board recommends that the driveways be changed and that.
I actually have that. I got two more things.
And recommends the sidewalks, because they always tell
Yeah.
us how many lawyers sit in front of us and say, well, if you recommend it, it means something to the county. We'll
Okay.
see.
Along the lines of what Mr. Healy had said earlier, although this is not a permitted use in this zone, schools are conditionally permitted in other zones, which sets you up with a whole bunch of conditions, and they will comply with those conditions as if they are applicable to this zone. That's going to help you out with a lot of different things in terms of buffering, lighting, and saving trees, and then I'll throw in to this buffering to the satisfaction of Mr. Healy if you want. If you have any further say in it, I don't know.
Well, I don't know if I have any jurisdiction since they
Yeah.
don't come back here, frankly. I think.
Unless
I'm
you
not sure
want
how
to
that would
roll, well, are they going to meet with the county to talk about buffer or just traffic?
Yeah, just the traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I think compliance with the,
The applicant, I think would, when the plans are, when the plans are developed, if the board wanted, the condition that they would, send it for my review, and if the applicant
Okay.
agreed to that, I guess that would be the way to address that.
Yeah.
Yeah, consistent with the ordinance.
I just want to mention one other thing, and that is that it was mentioned in the testimony from the public that there's a lot of people that go across to Route 1, and they're moving now on that North Brunswick train station, and that'll be probably happening in about the same time the school's happening. And the route to the school is from our area is going to go straight across,
Barricade the streets.
And that, in other words, if they close down Jersey Avenue, and that becomes the new train station. There's a good 1,000 people in the morning. They're going to be trying to find a way to go across Claremont. But anyway, that really hasn't been talked about much because it's pretty new. But that funding is going to happen. And there's some other, I mean, we really, in terms of our master plan and what we're dealing with down the road, in commuters and traffic, that whole thing, this school has got to get redesigned. I mean, it's got to have some real improvements in that access.
I did have finally the notes about entrances and exits to be staggered rather than aligned. The board recommends close examination of that issue. And then the hours of school, I was waiting to hear what you guys made in the formal motion. But those were essentially the conditions that I had written down.
Anybody want to add any conditions?
Pat, if I could just, I think they had indicated that they were, in dealing with the county, they had committed to make their fair share of improvements to the intersection of South Middlebush and Claremont, whether that be timing and/or physical modifications to the intersection. And then I'm not sure if you mentioned it, that they had indicated to make necessary turn lanes into the site on Claremont. There were some discussions about queuing on Claremont and getting vehicles in and out of the site and out of the main travel way. And I believe you did, I think you did mention looking at ways to perhaps modify the site layout to accommodate more queuing on site. And then also, they had mentioned that it's common practice that they put a fence around the perimeter of the site. I think that was mentioned by some of the neighbors as well.
The other two things I wanted to add was the thing that I said right in the beginning was that the lights would be turned off within an hour after the completion of the last function.
I guess that would be a recommendation. I don't know that we can.
Oh, it's a school. Well, I don't know. It depends on whether the Department of Education can veto it, but I guess we can condition the use on that. And then,
Well, the possible problem with that is after the last use, that there may be janitorial staff that may come in later on.
yeah, I'm not so, I don't think that that's really an issue. I don't think so. Nobody's telling me it is, so let's leave it like that. And if
With the exception of safety lighting.
with the exception of safety, that's perfect. Perfect. And then the other thing is that we do have control over one street in this entire place, and I was here for the great fight over Laird's Corner, and I know that the big question was the traffic on Saddam moving into that intersection, and I think that I can tolerate some denigration of the traffic moving from Saddam into that intersection, but it shouldn't be an F. It should be the traffic coming off of Saddam will be no worse than a D once everything is done.
And also, if that approval ever gets moving forward, there were some fairly significant intersection modifications or conditions that we put on that applicant.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to, I would be.
Don't hold your breath.
I
I'm
would
not,
be
but-
extremely surprised if that is ever consummated,
They got approved and evaporated.
because they spent all their money getting it approved.
And then they do nothing.
With regard to that last.
Lard's Corner, South
My
Middle.
only concern is I think that's a county intersection you're talking about, right?
Well, it's an intersection, it's a township road that intersects into an intersection with a county road.
I understand that, which means the county will have jurisdiction over the intersection.
Recommend instead of make it a condition then.
Thank you.
All right, can we take that?
As long as he's correct, Board Attorney, is he right about that?
He is, yep.
Okay.
Right, I move all of that.
It's a little unusual, but when we need a second for all of
Second.
that.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? Whole board, please.
Just for the record, Mr. Caldwell arrived at 7:36 before the hearing began, so he is eligible to vote on this matter. Mrs. Grauman?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Yes. Mr. McCracken?
No.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Caldwell?
Yes.
Chairman Thomas?
Yes.
I don't get to vote, Vince?
I didn't call you?
That's a lot of hard work just for us.
I'm sorry.
Come on.
4.
Mr. Betterbitz?
4.
You walked in actually when Vince wasn't here, so I don't think.
But I made,
he didn't
I made
change
the
his.
comment and make a note
He did,
at
but I noticed
7:39.
that, that's why he didn't notice.
I put you, it's a no vote because, but you came in just in time, so.
So we need a couple of more motions to wrap this up. First, we need a motion to close this portion of the meeting.
Moved.
A motion to move into an executive session.
Moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Opposed? All right, we'll move into an executive session as soon as we can chase everybody